think of another place. Come with me, let's have a smoke break. Nah, not just a normal break. Let's smoke break. Smoke break. Smoke
break. 30 seconds and counting.
There were plenty of years where there were guys who would dread being drafted by the Buffalo Bills. Not anymore.
Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 25 seconds.
Brandon Beane realizes they're in a window of 2 to 3 years max to get this done while the iron's still hot. And getting Von Miller into that situation was big for the Bills.
10, 9.
Oh, baby.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Great interview, guys.
Yo, what is up, Buffalo Fanatics? Z-Bot here with you, live, Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel, Monday night, smoke break, powered by BetUS, where the game begins. Receive a 125% sign-up bonus in the link in the description below. We are broadcasting live from Spain without the S, as we typically do this time of year. I believe this is now the 4th annual season-ending therapy session here on the Smoke Break, the 3rd season-ending therapy session on the Smoke Break, sponsored by the Kansas City Chiefs. And tonight's might be, I mean, where do you even begin to rank them? Obviously, the 13 seconds will never be trumped, I don't believe, but this certainly is up there for different reasons, of course. Feels a bit different, but ultimately, the impact it has on you is still the same. But the Bills season comes to an end yesterday in Orchard Park under the lights in the divisional round of the playoffs as the Buffalo Bills fall for the 3rd time in the playoffs to the Kansas City Chiefs, 27-24, 3rd consecutive exit for these Buffalo Bills in the divisional playoffs. 3 out of the last 4 years, an exit by the hands of the Kansas City Chiefs. And this time around, the stage was set up where everything the Bills could have wanted in past matchups was on the table. Game was at home. Bills were, in my opinion, playing better football than they had been playing at any point last year coming into the playoffs. Hobbled up Chiefs team, offensively not nearly what I mean, not nearly what you thought they were, right? Sure. Not what you thought they were during the reign of this utter dominance we are watching unfold. We thought they had taken a step back this season, and it was fair to say they certainly had, and I wasn't the only one to share that opinion. It was obvious amongst anybody who had watched them all year long. You're thinking you might be getting them in a vulnerable spot. They haven't been able to put up points like they usually were doing in the past. They haven't been able to move the ball as well, shooting themselves in the foot a bit more than we were used to with this team. And then, of course, the Bills finally have a run game. They're coming in hot. We know what Josh Allen can be in the playoffs. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter whether you play a shootout that goes into the 40s and overtime. Doesn't matter if you run the ball all game long and possess it for 2/3 of the football game. Can't beat them. Doesn't matter what you do, how you do it, who you're doing it with, who you're doing it against, where you're doing it. Can't do it. And we sit here today with the same fate that we've sat here with on 4 consecutive Mondays, four Mondays at this time of the year, 4 years in a row, feeling just about the same way. And it's funny how you feel even worse when it's moments like this. Last year, you felt sick just at the fact they didn't show up, but your heart wasn't ripped apart because that game never really got off the ground. The Bills lost that game in the locker room against the Bengals last year. But we know what it feels like to have your heart ripped out and shown to you, and that happened the last time the Bills played these Chiefs when it mattered most, and it certainly happened again last night. In different ways, a bit more anticlimactic, I'd say. It's obviously not the same feeling when you have the lead with 13 seconds left after one of the greatest shootouts we've ever seen, and then all of a sudden you lose. There's a much more volatile emotional reaction to a situation like that. Last night you had a bit of time, I would say, to start to come to terms with the fact that this game wasn't going to go their way. So brace yourself, strap in. God knows how long we'll be here tonight. We could go for forever. Who knows? We're just going to let it rip. In the comment sections, feel free to get your vent in, right? Get your venting session in on your own amongst each other in the comments if you'd like. Say what you feel. I'll be reading comments all throughout the night. If you want to get in on the conversation, of course, let me know what your overall takeaway from the game yesterday, from the season, what the Bills might do here moving forward. Throw out a super chat. I'll read them all. We'll get into it. We won't leave a stone unturned tonight. Plenty to talk about, of course, from that game, and we will get into all of it. Unfortunately, these are the for whatever reason, these episodes every year are always they're my favorite in a weird way. Not because we have to sit here and do them, but because we get to sit here and do them together. So that's why I like to leave the platform open for everybody to be able to come on and let me know what they're thinking, and I'll certainly let you know what I'm thinking. But in a weird way, these episodes always make me feel a bit better. I was talking to Caroline earlier on the phone. She's like, how you feeling? I said, I'm going to feel better after tonight, after I sit down and talk about it. I haven't really talked about it yet today. Went to the game, of course, with my dad. Drove back to Connecticut from Buffalo today, so that was a long drive of just sitting there with my thoughts, listening to what others had to say, of course, trying to get a pulse on what the overall read was from that game, and it's exactly what I thought it would be, and that's, what we all thought it would be, and that's Chiefs they never went anywhere, good as ever, no matter what the deal is. Kelsey's washed, right? Mahomes doesn't have it anymore. Andy Reid, is he going to retire? I mean, give me a break. Here they are, 6th consecutive AFC champion. So not only do you have to listen about all of that, right, and continue to watch this unprecedented dynasty unfold, but then you have to be reiterated time and time again. It has to be reiterated to you what these Bills are, what you know that they are, and so that's where I've been the last 24 hours or so, and we get to sit down and talk about it together tonight, and hopefully we all feel better afterwards. Who the hell knows? I don't know. I know I probably will, but so here we are. Once again, welcome in. Smoke break after a season-ending loss. It's a tradition unlike any other. Feels a bit different this time for a variety of different reasons. Some, I would argue, almost a bit better, just because it wasn't as gut-wrenching as the last time the Bills faced these guys in the playoffs. But the majority of it does feel worse. I've been seeing it get tossed out around social media that this wasn't as bad. No, the way the loss went down wasn't nearly as bad because of the reasons I just spoke about. You weren't on this volatile emotional roller coaster where within the span of 20 minutes, you certainly had that game won. And it wasn't like you just felt like you had it won. There wasn't a soul on the planet other than Mahomes, Andy Reid, and Travis Kelce who didn't think with 13 seconds left in the ballgame, the Buffalo Bills had that game won. So you were as sure as you were ever going to be that the Buffalo Bills were moving on, had their best chance to go and do what still feels like to this day an impossible task. And obviously that doesn't come to fruition. Last night, it just felt like the writing was on the wall as soon as the second half opened up. And it's funny how things did somehow find a way to bounce the Bills' direction in order to make it go down to the final play. And we talked about this last week. I pretty much pegged this game down to a T. I've just, of course, had the wrong team winning. But I said it would be lower scoring. And I would argue that game wound up being higher scoring than I thought. I had 23-20, but I didn't think either team would crack 30. I thought it was going to come down to the last minute no matter what. I thought it was going to be entirely close throughout. Never thought there was a chance of a blowout here. I also said that I guarantee you there's at least one or two plays in this game that are either insane or insanely controversial, and we will be talking about them the next day, whether good, bad, or indifferent. That, of course, happened yesterday as well. You could probably argue there was at least three major plays that are worthy of conversation. I'd even go beyond that, just about the amazing plays as well that you can tack on that'll get forgotten because it really ultimately doesn't matter this morning or the evening or whatever the hell time it is. But I knew there would be some play that would stick out, and you could argue there's at least three. And two of them, obviously, not in favor of Buffalo. One was, and it was ultimately the reason why this game ended up coming down to a wide right field goal. But everything pretty much went the way I expected it to, except the Kansas City Chiefs flipping a switch. I had said that I looked at this Chiefs team throughout the duration of the year, and I had felt that if there was a switch to flip, they would have flipped it by now. If you're going to go into your home stadium on Christmas Day in front of the largest audience that weekend in the NFL as far as ratings were concerned and lay an absolute egg against your division rival that you've dominated since Mahomes has entered the league, you're going to allow Aiden O'Connell to go 9-21 for less than 70 yards and lose at home in front of that audience on that stage. That is what, 3-4 weeks ago now? So at that point, we were, week 16, week 17? The Chiefs had shown week in and week out throughout the year pretty much their identity. They were susceptible to a loss any given week, but great teams do find a way the majority of the time, and they had found a way enough to get themselves to an 11-6 record and a 3 seed. But by their standard, certainly was not what we were accustomed to. And because of that, we felt as though they were vulnerable, and understandably so. They were shooting themselves in the foot time and time again. They did it against the Bills when they squared off. Offsides, of course, allowing the Bills to take that game in Arrowhead. The dropped ball against the Philadelphia Eagles. A variety of uncharacteristic moments for these Chiefs throughout the year that had you thinking that they were stepping down a peg in this conference. And I had felt that if there was a switch to flip, how does Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes not flip it by now? How was it not flipped? Because you go the duration of an entire football season without really showcasing your ability to turn that dial. I'm supposed to believe just because we're entering into the postseason that all of a sudden you uncover that dial and you're able to turn it to 11. I didn't see it. Didn't think that it was there. But you still knew that Mahomes was special, of course. You still knew it was Andy Reid. You still knew it was the Chiefs. But if you remember what I had said, I equated it back to how I felt about the Patriots at the end of the dynasty, where it felt like the New England Patriots still had that imposing projection that they gave to their opponent just based on simply being the New England Patriots. But Brady was gone. They no longer were those Patriots, but you couldn't shake the idea of the fact that they were no longer dominant. The reason I had compared it to that is because it felt like we were waiting for the Chiefs to just turn the dial, because it's the Chiefs, right? It's Mahomes, it's Andy Reid. How can they not be great? How can they not have a switch to flip and all of a sudden be incredible, right? But they had never done it all year long. It just felt like they did not have it. And even last week against the Miami Dolphins, they win by 19, suffocate the Miami offense, score 26. But you look at that game, you knew Miami never had a shot in that game. You knew the weather played a big factor in the outcome of that game as far as, how lopsided it was. You knew that the Chiefs were unarguably the better team. You knew Miami's defense was ungodly banged up, and you knew their offense was not going to be able to score in those elements. So you took it with a grain of salt, the fact that they won by 19 and looked pretty damn dominant all game long. And even when they were moving the ball on the Chiefs, they settled for 4 field goals in that game, well into Miami territory, the majority of them down right near the red zone or beyond. So you come into this one and you're thinking, this is as susceptible to a loss in this spot as Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be. And you have them at home. You've been playing your best football of the year the last month and a half. You've been on an absolute heater, backed into a corner, playing playoff football for 7 weeks, overcoming each and every obstacle set in front of you. It felt like the time. It had to be the time. This was the time to do it. Because if it wasn't going to happen yesterday, when is it going to happen? Because you had this Chiefs team that felt like they were a bit down comparatively to what we expect. You felt like the Bills had destiny on their side, erasing a 3-game deficit in the AFC East to win the AFC East. A 0.1% chance at a 2 seed. Somehow, by the grace of God, get that. A near impossible task. 6-6 at one point. You fire your offensive coordinator. An article comes out about your coach. The team rallies around it. It felt like everything was going the Bills' way. It was destiny. It felt different. And the fools that we are, of course, buy into it every time, expecting different, and of course, the outcome never is. It's the same story every year, just with a new twist. It's like what they do nowadays in Hollywood with all of these movies that are previously made. They go back, they take a look at what was made, and they rehash them. New actors, right? A little bit of a script switch here and there, but ultimately, it's the same storyline. It's the same ending. And that's what this was. It was a hell of a story. Certainly was. This team was as down and out as they've been under Josh Allen during this window that they've been in. Like I said, 6-6, damn near eliminated from the playoffs, much less winning the AFC East, much less having a top 2 seed. It was over until it wasn't. And all of a sudden, that team that looked like they were dead in the water might be the hottest team in the league. It was destiny, folks. It was different. Last year, they hobble into the playoffs. Yes, they were 13-3. Do they ever feel like a 13-3 team to you? No. And what did they look like in the divisional round? Certainly not a 13-3 team. This year felt different for all the right reasons. And it didn't matter. Everything you could have wanted in the past matchups against the Chiefs, you had. All of these odd little entities, these weird little storylines that somehow seemed like the Bills had fate on their side this year. Same shit. Because no matter whether you backed into the playoffs like you did last year, where it felt like you really did not have any momentum going into it, whether you play the game of your life, perhaps the greatest game in NFL playoff history a couple of years ago, whether you go into it this year on an absolute heater, down and out, you somehow pull it off, you surprise everybody, all of a sudden you're one of the best in the league. It does not matter what the story is. Good, bad, somewhere in the middle, the end is always the same. It's me sitting here, you on the other side, and I'm sitting here telling you what you already know. And that's same shit just happened. We look forward to next year where inevitably the same shit will probably happen again. Except in the future, coming up here, the foreseeable future here, and this is why this one hurts just that much more. I don't know how it gets any better for these guys than what it just was. I don't know. I don't know how it gets any better than the opportunities that they've had in the past. Maybe it does. Can't guarantee it. Certainly can't count on it. And the way that things look, with the amount of veterans that this team is poised to lose, the guys they're going to have to give up on because of the salary cap situation, Josh Allen's money kicking in, not to mention the fact that Joe Burrow's coming back, CJ Stroud's taking another step. You don't think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to address this wide receiver room in their offense at some point in this draft, this coming up draft year, right? Aaron Rodgers back with the Jets. You ain't guaranteed to get back here. And they've gotten back here 3 consecutive years and have come up well short every single time. And the one time they got beyond this obstacle, well, they just got their absolute ass handed to them. And the unfortunate reality is you sit here today and you look at what the outcome of having one of the greatest quarterbacks of this generation has been. When you go back and look at what you have to show for it, it's a 2-touchdown drubbing in Arrowhead in the AFC Championship. Today, Jared Goff with the Detroit Lions, a team that was 0-16 a blink of an eye ago, has as many conference title appearances as the Buffalo Bills do with Josh Allen. And now you look around the landscape of what the AFC has become, and you're looking at what the Bills could have been, should have been. How they haven't been, no one knows. But look at what's happened. Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills have been in this Super Bowl window for a while now. And what they have to showcase for it is one AFC championship appearance, got their ass handed to them. And I'm looking at all these other teams with the guys, right? The guys that we all talk about and we all argue who's better. And that's Lamar, Josh Allen, Mahomes, and Joe Burrow. Every single one of those guys has more to show for their career thus far than what Josh Allen has to show in Buffalo, and it ain't on the fault of Josh Allen. Lamar, 2 MVPs, and now has the same amount of conference title appearances as Josh Allen does. Mahomes, do I have 2 hours to tell you all the accolades he has under his belt? And, of course, Joe Burrow has gotten to a Super Bowl, multiple AFC championship appearances. But an utter failure for that man at quarterback. And last night was no different. You think you got all the time in the world with that guy in the backfield until you don't. And everybody always thinks you're going to be back. You're going to be back. You know, I anticipate them continuing to make the playoffs with Josh Allen. I certainly do. I don't know if I anticipate having the setup be as good as it was this year. Do I anticipate the setup including a Joe Burrow-less Cincinnati Bengals team, a Kansas City Chiefs team that was vulnerable enough to not have a home playoff game for the first time in Mahomes' career, have to go to your building, a Kansas City Chiefs team that did 100% look beatable all throughout the year? Do I anticipate all of these things happening and lining up again for the Bills? You probably say, oh, well, what about the injuries, Bot, right? On defense, I understand that wholeheartedly, but do we anticipate that all of a sudden they're just going to be completely healthy at this point next year? Do we anticipate the offense is going to be as healthy as it was? Because there wasn't an injury on offense outside of Gabe Davis. The amount of luck we've had on the offensive side of the ball with injuries, the amount of luck we've had with Josh Allen, who really hasn't missed a game since he's become a Buffalo Bill. Him and Patrick Mahomes lead the league right now for consecutive starts without missing a game. How lucky we've been. None of it's been capitalized on. The Kansas City Chiefs own this organization, and it's not in the way that you would think. It's not as if they are infinitely more dominant than the Buffalo Bills. It's not even that they're infinitely more talented. And you know that to be true because these teams have faced off against each other now 7 times, and they're 3-4. That's a rivalry. That is a good, I mean, what other way to say it? That is as good of a rivalry as you can get when you never know what's going to happen. The games are always close. And when you look at the win-loss total for each side, it's pretty much right down the middle, right? You know the Bills are talented enough to beat them. You know they have the capability to beat them. They're 3-1 against them in Arrowhead, right? In the regular season, they're 3-1 against them. Keywords are in the regular season. And that is ultimately the biggest difference between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. Frankly, it's really the biggest difference between the Kansas City Chiefs and the rest of the NFL. The Kansas City Chiefs have the ability, almost at will, to generate the one or two additional plays that you can't. And that, folks, is always the difference in games like these. And they do it every single time. And the Bills fail to do it every single time. And that's what makes it so frustrating, because it's not as if you're watching these guys get their ass kicked and you're just thinking to yourself, we're never going to be able to overcome that talent. That's not what it is. And that's what makes it so frustrating, because when you look at all the things you see online today and you hear in the media and stuff, it's out there. You know, the Bills got to fire Sean McDermott and they got to do this. They got to. I'm hearing people wanting to get rid of Josh Allen. I mean, the dumbest shit you've ever heard in your life, right? It had nothing to do with any of that. Everybody today's got the big old solution. Blow it up, right? Blow it up. Get rid of the coach. We gotta draft more weapons. And I get all that. I get all that. Sure. But was that the difference last night? Was that the difference in the 13-second game, the weapons? Or last night, was that the ultimate difference for the loss, the inability to have an extra guy out there that you drafted? Maybe. Or was the difference that the guy on the Chiefs, maybe, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who hasn't done anything all year for this team, but a liability for this team all year, makes the catch of the playoffs. Well, the Bills' number one wide receiver, easily top 10 wide receiver in this league, house no name by anybody who watches the NFL, right? He drops the pass of the year. These are the differences. It's not fire the coach and bring in another one. It's not we gotta make a big move this offseason. It's not that. It's the nuances. And the Bills are not good enough. And the Chiefs are the best I've ever seen at it. There's so many things involved here, and it's almost going back to the old age. The Bills are just cursed. Because you look at what this is, okay? The Bills, while I grew up, Tom Brady, 33-3 against these Buffalo Bills. Yeah, it totally sucked. It totally blew. They owned that ass for 2 decades. But it was a little less devastating because the Bills weren't any good during that entire period. It wasn't like the Bills were going toe-to-toe with the Patriots for the division and getting bounced out by them in the playoffs. No, the Bills were sitting at the cellar of the division, staring up, and it didn't really matter. You just looked at that as 2 additional bye weeks for the Patriots every year, right? That's all it was. You never looked at that like, oh, if we beat the Patriots this year, we got a chance. It wasn't that. It wasn't that at all. But you still had to endure it. And then finally, oh my God, the Bills have a quarterback. They got a team. This is unbelievable. The drought is over. And not only is the drought over, here's the beginning of the new era, the new Bills, the team that's going to do it. And what happens? The baton gets passed from the greatest dynasty we've ever seen in sports to Kansas City, who's in pursuit of making that look like a fairy tale. Making that look like a children's bedtime story, what they're doing right now. It took Tom Brady 12 years to get to 6 AFC championships. Mahomes did it in 6. And this time, the difference is the Bills are on the losing end in the biggest moments. They're not sitting at home during the regular season saying, man, this Mahomes guy is something. They're the guy in the middle of it making you say that guy is something. That's the sickest part about it. As soon as this team gets good, we might be watching the greatest run maybe ever. It's going to take some time to surpass New England. But has anybody ever been on a better start than this? Ever? The guy has started for 6 seasons, and he has made the AFC championship all 6. It is insane. It is insane. I've never seen anything like it in my life. The guy's never lost a divisional game. The guy's never not been to the AFC championship. And in their worst season, quote unquote, that they've had underneath of them, it trumps the best season the Bills had with Josh Allen by a long shot. I mean, what are the odds? was telling my dad yesterday, we were driving home, just trying to find something to make yourself feel better. And it was like, if this team was in the NFC, we were talking, if this team was in the NFC, how many conference championships at the minimum would the Bills have made by now? Or at least would they have made one Super Bowl? I would think so. But here it is. Here it is again. These guys. It's these guys. It's the Chiefs. And you've done everything in your power to get over them. And you can't, no matter the game style, no matter what you do. And we'll get into the game specifics. We'll get into whatever. You know how these go at the end of the year. I'm just, whatever comes to my mind, man, that's where I'm at. The season's over. I don't give a damn. Right? It's just a collection. Let it rip. And I'm thinking to myself, what's the difference if these guys are in the other conference? Because I'm watching Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff, Brock Purdy, right? Battle it out, the reign of the NFC. And in the AFC, it's murderer's row. And it doesn't matter because Mahomes is going to slay the dragon every single time. It's unprecedented. Not only are they doing it on an unbelievable clip, they're doing it against the best of the best as well. And it doesn't matter if it's on the road or at home or if they're a favorite or an underdog or who's hurt or who's not, who they're playing. It doesn't matter. I've never seen anything like it. And then afterwards, you just saw the video, I'm sure, of Mahomes saying, they asked for it, they got it. These guys are dancing on everybody's damn graves. It's got to be the greatest feeling in the fucking world to be a Kansas City Chiefs fan. I can't even fathom what that must feel like. This is insane what we're watching. Dan Mitchell coined this Bills year as the greatest story ever told. You want to know what the greatest story ever told is right now? It's these Kansas City Chiefs and what they're doing, because I've never seen anything like it. And the unfortunate reality is multiple chapters in that greatest story ever told feature the Bills as the antagonist, and they lose every single time by the time that chapter comes to an end. They might win the battle. They certainly don't win the war. And it doesn't matter how you do it. Like I said, a shootout of the ages, a game that goes well into near the 80-point total, right? Doesn't matter. You go to overtime, you still lose. You get your ass kicked the first time. And then last night, you dominate the time of possession. You run it down their throat. You literally could not have executed your game plan really any better up until the end, of course. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And then it leaves you to believe, and it's back to what we were talking about going into this game. If it didn't work last night, when's it going to work? They've done everything. They've even gone as far as to sell out for their defensive line to try and stop Mahomes. How did that pan out? You go and get Von Miller just to stop Mahomes. Go look at Von Miller's stat line for the year. Holy shit. And yesterday, not even beyond Von Miller. Who the hell even cares at this point? That's done and over. Yesterday, you don't even get a pressure on the guy. Ed Oliver, he's been as dominant as anybody this year on the defensive line. It's the first game in 2 seasons he did not get a pressure on the quarterback. They hit him 8 times the last time they played. They didn't get to him. They didn't sniff the guy. He could have sat back there all night long and did whatever he wanted, and that's exactly what he did. And when he wasn't doing that, they were running it for 10 yards a carry. It was incredible. And I understand the defense is banged up, but I get it, not on the defensive line. That's who had to come up. The Bills have been doing everything in their power to stack up that D-line so they could beat the Chiefs. And it was the weakest unit on the field last night. So it doesn't matter what they've done, what they do, what the game plan is, where they're playing it. What does it matter? What does it matter? We get on Miami Dolphins fans a lot. We like to have fun with them, right? Josh Allen, what is he, 11-1 in his last 12 against them, something like that. This is what that's got to feel like on an infinitely higher level. Yeah, the Bills own the Dolphins in the regular season, win the AFC East and whatever. That's all great. And don't get me wrong, I don't like to discount that. The 4 consecutive AFC East titles, I love all that. Way more than I ever had growing up. But we know that this This ain't what this team's after. It's not what we're after, and it's not what they've built themselves up to go after. But in pursuit of what they've been doing, they've dominated and owned the Miami Dolphins. And it's felt pretty great for us, right? As Bills fans, we go online and we see the Dolphins fans bitch and we get a big kick out of it and we love it and whatever. That's how the Chiefs feel about us in infinitely bigger moments that mean everything. And we know what it feels like to kind of own a decent team. Imagine how those guys feel. 3 times. 3 times on the biggest stage. 3 different types of games. And now you have an example in both locations. Different types of weather, different types of personnel. Without Tyreek Hill, right? Without him. The best Chiefs team, the worst Chiefs team, a better defense, a weaker defense, air attack, run game, dominate time possession, equal time. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I mean, I can't get over how it is sort of hilarious. Just as soon as the Bills become one of the better teams in the league, haven't had that in 25 years, that has to be in the middle of whatever this is. I don't know what this is for the Chiefs. It's not Patriots yet because it hasn't had the time to be that. But you cannot get off to a better start. I've never seen anything like this. The guy, Patrick Mahomes, has been a starter in this league for 6 years. He has gone to the I can't, every time I say this, I can't believe it. Every time I hear it, every time I read it, every time I say it, 6 AFC championship games in 6 years of starting. 3 Super Bowl appearances, 2 Super Bowl victories, 2 MVPs. In the same amount of time that Josh Allen has started in this league, same amount of seasons. And the thing that's crazy is you watch these games and the Bills aren't really any worse than that team at all. On any given Sunday, Josh Allen's really not any worse than Patrick Mahomes. And we have the argument all the time because there's some weekends where Josh Allen looks better. And last night, it's not like there's this big dip. If anything, you're watching it and you're saying, oh my God, Josh Allen's the one out having to do everything in his power tonight. Mahomes, he's got wide open guys all over the field and their run game's going off. And yet that's the difference. Even though you're watching the games, and if you really watch the NFL, you know that the gap between those two teams from a talent perspective and a competitiveness perspective, it really isn't, it's marginal. But the gap between what it has resulted in from either organization, it's wider than the Grand Canyon. It's beyond any measurable metric. And that is the most unfathomable thing. And 3 of the times for these Chiefs where they've gone on and gone the distance, it's been at the Buffalo Bills' expense. 3 of the 6 consecutive seasons for these Chiefs where they move on to the AFC championship or beyond, it's been at the expense of the Buffalo Bills. Despite the fact that I really don't think that the talent gap is all that crazy, nor do I think what they provide out on the field on any given Sunday is all that different. The Chiefs have an it. There's no way to describe an it factor. I don't know how to describe it. But an it factor to me is a team that just has this undescribable feeling to them. This vibe that they impose. That's why yesterday, it's the biggest game in forever in Buffalo. That's why everybody wanted to be there. That's why I wanted to be there. That's why that crowd was as loud as I've ever heard it. It's because it is the Chiefs. There's an aura there. It's the Patriots had that aura. When the Patriots were coming to town, it's, oh my God, the Patriots and Tom Brady are coming to town. That's really what this is. I can't describe it because you can't describe the ability to win like this the way that they've done. I really can't find the accurate words. I don't know if there really are any. And that's really the difference between them and everybody else. They usually win close, right? The Super Bowls they've won, the 2 that they've won, both very, very close, right down to the end of the game. Getting to the AFC championships right down to the end of the game. I mean, even the 2 AFC championships they lost, weren't they both in overtime? So it's truly something else, and it's something I cannot describe, but it's something the Bills certainly do not have. It's this ability to just do it, to do it. I can't really find a way to describe it any other way. The ability to just go in and do it no matter what. They do that. And, you know, it's not like it's just the Bills because nobody else can do it. No one else has done it. Except for a one-off for the Tampa Bay Bucks with Tom Brady where they just went on the run of the lifetime and beat the hell out of them in the Super Bowl. Nobody else has done it. Couple of victories for the Bengals, give them credit, but they didn't capitalize on it. So let's just get into it, I guess. They you go into that game. You know what? Hold on. Let's just, I haven't even looked at the comments. Let's just see where we're at. Let's get to some super chats first, I guess. We'll start here. We'll start with some super chats, just general chat, and then we'll get into the game itself. There's so much to talk about when it comes to the game itself. Start from the top. PVC Farm. Did we overachieve or disappoint? Well, we certainly didn't overachieve. We overachieved in the sense that we overachieved the idea that we had in our minds a month and a half ago, and that was, wow, we're not even making the playoffs. So from that perspective, sure, we overachieved. But is that really overachieving when this team is expected to be in contention for a Super Bowl, not in contention for a wild card spot or a barely sneaking into the playoffs? Of course it's a disappointment. It's a massive disappointment. It's as big of a disappointment as we've had up until now. Because this is what you were asking for. The Chiefs in your house, under your terms, they did not look like the Chiefs of old. And the Bills looked like they had fate on their side. And nope, you can't do it. And you had the opportunities to do it. Wasn't like you got rolled. Wasn't like it wasn't your night. You had the opportunities and multiple of them and even a couple of gifts that you shouldn't have had. And you still couldn't do it. We certainly did not overachieve. I understand why you're asking if we overachieved, because this team was 6-6 at one point, and they were essentially dead. So from that perspective, sure, they overachieved in that given moment from what was expected at that moment. But did anybody go into this season expecting this team to be 500 12 weeks into the year, begging for a spot in the playoff? No. This team is vastly underperformed, underachieved under Josh Allen. When you look at I mean, there's no other way to put it. Like I said earlier, look at the teams that they're constantly compared to, or the quarterbacks that they're constantly comparing Josh Allen to, right? Lamar, Burrow, Mahomes, all three of them have more to show for it than what Josh Allen and his football club has to show for it. And yesterday was the opportunity. Maybe you go in next week and get your doors blown off you by the Ravens. Maybe. And the way that they're playing, maybe, I don't know if it would have shocked anybody because they've beaten the living shit out of everybody they played this year. Anybody worth a damn that the Ravens have played this year. It's not like they're doing it to sub 500 teams. They're beating the piss out of the best teams in the league. So maybe the Bills go in to the bank next week against the Ravens and get their ass kicked. But at least they got over the hump of the Chiefs. That would have meant something to this organization. It would have meant something to this franchise. It would have meant a hell of a lot to 17, who has earned the right to beat that team one of these times in the postseason. Not much more that guy can do. And he's got to go and take the podium and take the beating. He's got to take the media crucifying him all day, all week, all offseason, all next year until something changes. Go look at his numbers against the Chiefs and ask me what more you want that guy to do. When you look at the guy you have, and everybody who knows anything about this league knows that man is a mutant, a one-of-one athlete that not many people would have ever expected to take over the league. When you go and look at that guy and understand that he is one of the best athletes to play the position in the modern era, and you look at what they've got to show for it, GP, If I was sitting in the stands where Jason Kelsey jumped in, I would be in jail today. So, side story. We're walking into the stadium, me and my dad. There's Jason Kelsey, just standing there. Bumped right into him. My dad went up and gave him a high five. Just standing there. Little did we know 3 hours later, he and Taylor Swift and the whole posse would be having the time of their life. And I go back to what I was saying, however long ago. It must be nice. I mean, this whole thing, it's just a gigantic Mardi Gras for these guys. It's been like a 6-year-long parade for these sons of bitches. It's unbelievable. And it just gets better and better and better, better. I mean, you're doing this. You're doing everything any other franchise would be dreaming of, while at the same time you got the most famous person in the world up in your suite going nuts with you, getting all the television publicity and all the storylines. You got Travis Kelce's Hall of Fame brother in your building, in your stands, shirtless, chugging beers, and they're winning the game. I mean, it's got to be heaven on earth. I don't know what they sacrificed, what they gave up to have this. I've never seen anything like it. It is a Disney motion picture playing out on display in front of the entire world. The silver screen that encases the entire world. The Chiefs are wrapped around the whole thing, and everybody gets to sit back and either resent it or enjoy it if you happen to be a Chiefs fan. I mean, it must be, I couldn't even imagine. I couldn't imagine. It must feel like Christmas Day every day. Every day. It's like, oh, first road game from Mahomes, look out. Oh, no, we'll just have our brother go in and be like the biggest story in the world because he took his shirt off and chugged a beer. We'll have Taylor Swift up in the Buffalo booth, and she's having the best time ever. I mean, Brittany Mahomes is putting her in a headlock. They're goofing around. They're having the time of their life. Oh, we can't win on the road? We can't beat the Bills in their place? They wanted it. We'll give it to them. I mean, it's unbelievable. No matter what you throw at them, the narrative doesn't matter. And they're just having the time of their life. Biggest celebrities in the world. Your brother, Hall of Famer, going nuts. Everybody's taking pictures of him. He's the talk of the town. He's the toast of the town today. Oh my God, I love Jason Kelsey. Love him. He's the best. Of course you do. Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't love that? Unless you're a Bills fan, of course. Who wouldn't love all that? Because it's great. Who wouldn't love that? I mean, who wouldn't love everything going amazing for you? I know I would love that if it was happening to me. Of course it isn't. Probably never will. Certainly never will, actually. Probably. What hope do I have anymore for any of that to ever happen to me? I mean, it must just be, oh my God, incredible. I like Jason Kelsey, by the way. Don't get it twisted. I'm just saying, it just must be great. It must be great. Oh my God. Could you imagine? We just want one. We just want one. We just want to get there. Just want to get there. I just want to see it. I want to watch it once. That's it. I'm not even really asking to win. Honest to God, I feel like I'd be asking for too much. And you get to do it on the grand stage with the parade, the TMZ parade, and you just do whatever you want. Anywhere you go, you just take over. Oh my God. It is insanity. It is insanity. Darren. I know. Oh, we'll get into this. I don't even know what to make of this, with Diggs. I don't know. I know Diggs is good, but it's a little heartbreaking when Allen always defends him. But when Allen needs him, he disappears and is nowhere to be found. Yeah, What happened to going to the podium after games like this? All these guys. What happened to showing some accountability? What happened to going and putting on a brave face for your franchise, owning up to what just happened and trying to move past it? What happened to those days? Go back and watch the Four Falls of Buffalo when you got Scott Norwood cornered at his locker, taking all the questions after he just lost the Bills' only real chance at a Super Bowl off of his right foot. And he sat there and took it. Now you just opt out. And I understand last week Diggs opts out after the win. But why is that even? I don't understand that. And it's a good point you make. Look, I'm not going to speak for the guy. But if that's me, I'm not letting my quarterback and my kicker go out there and take all of it, and my coach. Because everybody knows that I dropped one of the best passes of the postseason. Everybody knows that my numbers have been diminishing rapidly over the second half of the season. And the biggest opportunity I've had to make a big impact on a team that I've been hoping gets over the hump since I've gotten here, and I don't go and speak for myself about it. I don't love it. I don't love it at all. Josh has got to go and sit out there. The guy looks like he just saw a massacre. I mean, I can't even describe what he looks like and what he projects, what his feelings are projecting onto me that I'm seeing being translated through his body language. And he's just got to go do it every time, even though that man, I mean, the guy was the Bills yesterday. He was the Bills. What else is new? And every time you try to get someone else to make a big play, nope. I mean, that was so big. That play was so big. That throw. Go back and look at that throw, and you ask me when the last time you've seen a throw that far, that perfect. You bottle him up all game, right? I think he has less than 50 yards on 19 targets the last two times he's played the Chiefs. You got an opportunity to break this game open right there. You're already in closer field goal range than you ended up being in, and you have the opportunity to go and score the touchdown. Momentum on your side right there. Meanwhile, like I said earlier, this is just the difference. It's not like this game's on Diggs. This game's not on any one particular individual, unlike everybody else who wants to tell you that it is. Oh, it's on Bass. It's on McDermott. It's on somehow on Josh Allen. I mean, holy shit! If you have that mindset, I mean, incredible that thought process exists. It's not on any one individual person, but it's a collective unit, and it's not treated as such. Everyone who plays a part in that game, and anyone who's a superstar getting paid superstar money, should have to answer questions after the biggest game of the year. That's how I see it. I don't think it's too much to ask. So I agree with you. I think it's a shame. I think it's a shame. Allen has stood up for Diggs any chance he's gotten. And when Diggs talks to the media, he's very well spoken and he's very honest, I think. And I just think he's a good interview. I always have felt that. It's not a good look to me to dodge it. You go out and talk about it like everybody else has to, and you move on. No one ever says anything of validity in these interviews anyways. Just go and wear your heart on your sleeve for 5 minutes and stand up for the franchise. Stand up for the error you had in the game that everybody's going to be talking about today and have been talking about today. I agree with you, Darren. 100%. 100%, man. Nels is saying from J Mays, think it's time to become a Giants fan. Yeah, well, just when you thought it couldn't be worse, I could go down that road. At least I have the opportunity to get my heart ripped out of my chest cavity. You know, at least I have the opportunity to get there. Nels, right? Although at this point, you wonder if it would even be better just not even having to get to the point and deal with it. Rich coming in. Diggs spent all year ripping the team for not being ready and making plays, then does that shit. No, man, unacceptable, then avoids the media. Look it, we talked about this all offseason. We don't know how much he was ripping the team. We don't know exactly what the deal is there. And I've defended Diggs at every turn because I thought that story was blown well out of proportion, way out of proportion. So I know everybody's saying today, Diggs is ripping the team. Diggs, listen, for a fact, I know this. He was a lot of cryptic tweets, and for whatever reason, he was a cornerstone of the media conversation surrounding the Bills and their potential downfall or whatever, right? So that's all true. Now, whether, he actually was doing things worthy of having that conversation, I never felt he was. So it's hard for me to sit here and say that he was doing that now and all of a sudden he's got to go and repent for all those things that I don't even know if he did. But the one thing he did do, and we just talked about it, that I truly think is just unacceptable, is avoiding the media after that game. I just think it's a bad look. There's nothing you can do at that podium that would look worse than not going to the podium at all. It's just the way I see it. I don't know how that's not readily apparent to everybody involved here? How does it not come across blatantly to you that not going to the podium is an infinitely worse look than just going there and just manning up on it for 5 minutes? I mean, imagine the talking points today if Josh Allen doesn't go to the presser yesterday. No one would ever stop talking about it. No one would ever stop talking about it. You know, I haven't really thought all about this today because, frankly, it's like, how much do I really give a shit that Stephon Diggs didn't go to the podium after that? Like, wow, okay, yeah. That's why I haven't really thought about it. But the more you do think about it, as we're talking about it here, it's not good to me. I don't like it at all. No, I don't. Because it has felt as though he has given a vibe that maybe this team has let him down. And I think at times that argument was probably valid. I mean, you go back to the 13 seconds game, you could definitely argue the defense certainly let down the Bills offense in that game. I could probably argue that from last night. But it's a different circumstance with a depleted defense that really tried to hold serve as best as they could last night. I mean, for Christ's sake, that was a cheese grater out there on defense just trying to hold serve, right? It would have been nice to have one of your star players, one of your household names go out and take some accountability after that game. I wholeheartedly agree. Haven't really thought about it, like I said, until now, but it's mainly because there's been about a million other things I've been thinking about. And this is just one more, I guess. Yeah, the more I think about it, the more I hate that. You gotta go. You gotta go up. Especially in a game like that, where the next day everybody's going to be talking about your play and everybody's going to be talking about Bills blow it again or whatever. You have a chance to go and get out ahead of that. I mean, man, he's a captain. He's a captain. Captains, this is what a captain moment is right there, I guess. Is there any other moment that defines a captain more than that moment where you go out and you wear it for your team at the podium? I don't know. Alton coming in. But realistically, should McDermott be on the hot seat this upcoming season? Let's just get into that real quick. Get it off your mind. I'm seeing it all day. I'm hearing it from everywhere. Just lose. And I'm not trying to get on you. You were the first to bring up McDermott. It's not you. And you just asked a question. You weren't giving any definitives. So I'm just saying, as a generality here, get it off your mind. It's not happening. They're not moving off McDermott. It's not happening. It's not happening. You can't have it both ways. The same guy that got this team from dead in the gutter, okay, to 7-1 and making it into yesterday. You can't praise him in that moment and then shit on him the second they lose by 3 points in the divisional. You can't have it both ways. Now, I know plenty of you wanted him fired all throughout the whole thing. All right, bravo, congrats. But, then the next guy will come in. You want him fired too when the Chiefs beat him again, right? That's the key. That's the key. You're asking a lot from these guys. This is what I think so overlooked in this whole scenario. You are asking these guys to overcome what we'll look back to see, I guess. These guys got me all fucked up. We will look back at this Chiefs thing and just be like, this is I can't believe we witnessed this, because that's what it is. It's generational, and we're judging and we're bashing McDermott and putting his job on the line because he can't beat maybe the greatest team in the history of the sport when it's all said and done. And what I got on earlier is the same thing I'll get on right now. That guy has beaten Andy Reid 3 times. It's not like he's incapable of doing it. And last night, the Bills offense had a chance to beat them at the end. Couldn't do it. And at the end of that 13-second game, the Bills had a chance to beat him and couldn't do it. And I don't think that's all on Sean McDermott. I don't. This guy got them to where they were yesterday. I wonder if it wasn't for his ability to retool this defense. I don't even know if these guys make the playoffs to begin with. What he did with this defense this year, with what he had, I thought was extraordinary. It was extraordinary. And I don't know if there's anybody else who could have done what he did with that defense. I don't know. And it just felt like last night it was one too many straws on the back of the camel with these injuries. It's just what it felt like yesterday. You caught a Chiefs team that wasn't doing a whole hell of a lot offensively. Scared the shit out of me. I thought the fucking house was getting shot up. Oh, every week with this fucking thing. Holy shit! I thought I was getting shot at. I'm not even kidding. I don't know what that was. A marching band. I mean, I thought I was done. Thought I was dead. Almost welcome it at this point. Anyway, I don't understand how we can watch yesterday and then the immediate answer, just fire McDermott, when we've been praising them for the last month and a half, getting them to where they're at. Now, look it. The reason I bring this up is because I don't think people understand. If you just fire McDermott and bring in a new coach, does that mean, oh, wow, we beat the Chiefs now? I don't think so. Nobody else is doing it. Nobody else is beating them. Who's beating these guys? 6 consecutive AFC East championships. 3 Super Bowls out of those 6 years. It's not just McDermott. In fact, McDermott's given them the best crack outside of Cincinnati, who for whatever reason has their number. I don't know if that's necessarily to the credit entirely of Zach Taylor. Maybe it is. I don't know. But if anything, McDermott's given these guys their best crack. They're not firing him. It's not happening. And I don't foresee it happening unless it's a tailspin next year that they don't recover from like they did this year. I don't see it. I don't know how to the crowd that's firing McDermott after yesterday, I don't know how that's your takeaway from yesterday. I don't know how I see that. Now, there was a couple of moments that were horrendous. The fake punt, I mean, holy shit, what the hell was that? I mean, what was that? Laughably stupid, just so bad. And it didn't end up costing them. That's why we're not talking about it as much today. But that's really where the game should have ended. I mean, it really should have ended right there. And you have the fumble out of bounds rule that I cannot believe was overturned, and it didn't end up being the dagger. But that moment was brutal. You understood the sentiment surrounding it because the Bills defense couldn't stop shit. And we'll get into the whole game in a minute here, and I'll get more into that. But, you know, he was just trying to find a way to spark this team up. It was a terrible idea, terrible move, but it's not necessarily the reason they lost, and it's not necessarily the reason why you look today and say, oh, you got to fire McDermott. They were getting gashed so bad on defense, it got to the point where you literally had to hand the ball to Damar Hamlin on a kickoff in the minds of that sideline. I mean, it was such a bad call, such a bad read on the play. I mean, if your best play on 4th and 5 is to run Damar Hamlin into the line, I got nothing for you. If you're going to go for it, leave 17 out there, right? That makes a little bit more sense, doesn't it? That was the biggest blunder of the night, obviously, coaching-wise. But it felt like they were running out of options, I guess, and I do understand. I'm not excusing it at all. I thought it was just an egregiously bad call on McDermott's part. Just, I mean, almost inexcusable. But if that's your one reason today for firing them, I mean, I understand the mindset. I understand. It feels like they've peaked. Feels like if they haven't peaked, they're at the peak, right near it, right? This is about as good as it's going to get with McDermott and all that. I get it. I don't know if it's all of a sudden better with somebody else because it's not necessarily like they haven't gotten the ability to do it or have the ability to do it. It's just something about the Chiefs. I don't know what it is. They're just better at figuring it out. And you could say, oh, well, it's coaching. Well, Andy Reid was actually the guy that was in the shoes of McDermott back in the Philadelphia days. He was the guy that couldn't figure it out. He was the guy that got fired. He was the guy that nobody liked, right? He was the guy that took the brunt of the blame. But it's funny how when you get a guy like Mahomes and you get a guy like Kelsey who tore it up all night last night, then those things kind of go away a bit. I just think right now the difference between the Bills and the Chiefs is very marginal, but that marginal difference is ultimately the biggest difference. They just have the ability, that much more ability, to pull it out. Look, I keep saying, it's a tough conversation to have because there are points to be made about the McDermott situation. I do get it, but I thought he did a hell of a job this year. I thought he earned the right to retain that job. I don't think last night is a indictment on him personally, or should be the ultimate reason as to why you would be getting rid of him. Because you can't have it both ways. Once again, you can't judge based on the coaching job of one game without judging the coaching job that was just implemented and executed for the last month and a half to even allow them the opportunity to play that game yesterday. You can't have it both ways. I don't know how short the leash is either. I don't know. It feels like it gets shorter and shorter with McDermott. It feels like the seat might be getting a little warmer than it's ever been. But then again, is it? I don't know. Because we had that article from Tim Graham come out around the time the article from Tyler Dunn came out, and he said, pretty much as boldly as he could, there's no plans at all in the front office from moving on from McDermott. And I don't know if there's really any thought process at all being given to that, or even any thought at all in that front office. I don't know if it's any of that's being given to the idea of moving off from McDermott. So I think it's incredibly unlikely that they move off of him anytime soon. And I know it's a conversation everybody wants to have, and I do get it for certain reasons, but I also, I have a tough time having that be what I take away from yesterday. I don't know how I look at yesterday and come away saying, gotta fire Sean McDermott. I mean, that team had a chance at the end. That team executed the game plan, in my opinion, flawlessly for the majority of the football game. And really did not seem like that inferior of a team for the majority of the game until the end. I also don't think that the firing of Sean McDermott with the replacement of somebody else all of a sudden results in, wow, Bills are beating the Chiefs now. Because who's beating the Chiefs? Like I was talking about a little earlier, if the say the Chiefs aren't here, say the Chiefs aren't the Chiefs, I don't think anybody would be calling for a McDermott firing ever in the past or the present. The reason the pounding the table for the McDermott firing started, and I understand it, rightfully so, because at the time and still to this day, that was as fireable of an offense as McDermott has committed, and it was, of course, in the biggest moment, and it was one of the worst coaching blunders I've seen in a very long time, and that was the end of the Chiefs game, divisional round in 2021, in the 13-second game. That was when all these things started. And then, of course, they're as loud as ever today because the Bills once again lose to the Chiefs. And it makes you wonder, if you remove the performances against the Chiefs in the playoffs, which have been damn good performances for the most part, that come up on the short end of the stick, of course, right? But if you remove those, and I know you can't remove them, but think about it. If you remove, just for the sake of the exercise, the results there or the Chiefs itself or whatever, McDermott would be getting nothing but praise, in my opinion, nonstop. It's these moments like this against this team that have ultimately shined the loudest and have been the biggest indictment on his career and are the biggest reasonings backing the people who want to get rid of him. And to that I say, understandably, because you're thinking it has to be on him, the reason that they're losing here, because it's so close, the margin's so thin, it's got to come down to coaching, right? You have to think that way, I guess. But I argue they're also right there with this guy. And I'm going up against a team that I think history is going to look back on as one of the greatest of the sport ever. So it's just incredibly ironic and terrifyingly hilarious, I guess. It really makes you think they're cursed at times to think that they have all that and they have to put it up against this team that's generational. Josh Allen's generational. The Buffalo Bills aren't. And there's just something about the Chiefs with their ability to work with what Mahomes is, and they somehow, the whole team embodies that. The Bills don't. The Bills embody the aura of a great team, but they don't have this special it that the Chiefs do, and most teams don't. That's why we're going to look back at this team as an historic, next level, never before seen team like we look back on it with the Patriots. It's the only way I see it. I have no other way to describe it. Rich again saying, Z-Bot, so glad to see you didn't let Jesus take the wheel in the pit. Nutshell, McDermott got one more year, Super Bowl or he's gone, and I'm being generous. I mean, is the guy coming in replacing him? Is that Super Bowl then? Like, that's the question you got to ask. Or is it going to be that much better? They've gotten to the divisional or further 4 consecutive seasons, and they're on the short end of the stick 3 of those seasons against one of the greatest teams in the history of the sport. It's a really tough thing to wrap your mind around. I don't know if there's another coach who comes in and all of a sudden is able to overcome that obstacle that the entire league can't seem to overcome. You know, there's 16 other teams in this conference. The Chiefs have represented this conference all 6 of the past seasons. There's 16 total teams, 15 other teams than the Chiefs. And the Chiefs have somehow occupied a spot the last 6 seasons amongst all of those other teams. The Bills have had the best crack to do it. They have beaten this team 3 times. They fall up short in the biggest moment, 100%. I mean, there's no denying it. There's no excusing it, nothing. But to me, it's a collective. It's collective, the blame. And I don't know if the solution is to, fire McDermott, especially today. Like, I don't look at yesterday and think fire McDermott. If Josh Allen throws that ball to Shakir a second sooner, if Josh Allen throws that ball to Stephon Diggs instead of throwing it to Shakir, if Stephon Diggs catches that unbelievable ball from Josh Allen, if Tyler Bass makes a field goal, there's a variety of ifs. If all that happens, no one's asking for Sean McDermott to be fired today. You got to remember, too, this team played for Sean McDermott at the end of the year. This team played for him. I think it was a big reason why they got to where they got. They were inspired to play for that guy after that article came out. It could have went one of 2 ways. I think if they did not like McDermott in that locker room, they could have continued to hype up the article that came out. They could have leaked stuff to the media. They could have said things to people and gotten the word out that they wanted him gone, and they could have built on that. But instead, they did the opposite. And they went out and they played their best football of the year for that guy. And it seemed like they really wanted to do right by him. So I think that this locker room truly does respect and like Sean McDermott and play for him. I don't know today how the solution to yesterday is fire McDermott. I mean, the solution to yesterday would have been be healthy on defense. Don't divert from your game plan the final drive and just start chucking it to the end zone. Don't miss a field goal, right? Don't let Travis Kelce get into the end zone twice. Don't let Patrick Mahomes average 10 yards a throw. I mean, there's a lot of it. There's a lot of things here. There's a lot of things. There's a ton. And we'll get into more of the ins and outs of the game in a minute here. Connor coming in. I'd take getting blown out like last year any day over losing like that. Yeah, I agree. 100%. These hurt a million times more. At least everyone knew that game was over by the end of the first quarter instead of thinking you're going to do it till the end. No doubt about it. I couldn't agree more. And I'm sure today Packers fans are saying the same thing. And maybe Bucks fans, but certainly Packers fans. I know that for a fact. Everyone will tell you that in these moments, it hurts way more to lose by the skin of your teeth than it would to just get your ass kicked. There's no question about it. And even though last year sucked because it just felt like it was uninspired and they never showed up, like you said, the kill shot's in quick, and you know what you got. It's over. You got time to accept it. These losses are the worst, and it's even worse for the Bills fans like us because we are so used to it by now. I don't know if there's a fan base in existence that has been through more of what last night was than us. I mean, sure, there's fan bases that have been through torment, terrible teams, terrible losses, right? Close, no cigar. I don't know if anybody's ever been closer and failed more than the Buffalo Bills have. And I don't know if anybody's endured that more as a fan base than the Bills Mafia. I don't know if they have. I don't know if it gets tougher as a fan than it is being the fan of the Buffalo Bills. D missing too many players, full strength, we win. I mean, all teams are banged up this time of year. There's no question about it. But when I look at a guy in Travis Kelce who's really struggled at the latter half of this season here, and I don't remember the last time he even scored a touchdown, and he carves you up for 2 touchdowns, 75 yards. He had a couple of plays where he was untouched, wide open. Really makes you think that the missing pieces at the linebacker core were egregiously missed yesterday. There's no question about that. And I also look at, what this defense was all year long, and they were able to figure it out seemingly no matter what. When I see yesterday their inability to do so at all really goes to show you, I think, just how badly banged up that they truly were. Because this Bills defense under Sean McDermott has been able to patch pieces of these puzzle pieces together all year long. They've been able to find a way to take something out of nothing each and every week. And yesterday, it just felt like it was one too many blows, one too many guys missing to overcome. Because the Chiefs haven't carved up a defense like that really all year long unless they're playing bottom barrel type teams. The Chiefs have not moved the ball like that offensively in a while, and they were carving up the Bills every chance they got. They were unstoppable on offense. The Bills D had no answer. And the easy answer today is, well, the Bills D had no answer, therefore Sean McDermott should be fired. I mean, I'm pretty sure Tyler Metakevich played linebacker yesterday for a snap. I mean, these guys were toast on D. Done. And they still could have won the game. I mean, think about the plays that they made to even keep them in it. They couldn't force a punt all game, and when it mattered most, the Bills did end up forcing a punt and allowed the Bills to have that final drive. The game should have been over, nail in the coffin after the fake punt, and Jordan Poyer makes the play of the day defensively and forces that fumble that I once again still cannot believe got overturned, and the Bills somehow get the ball back again. So despite this D being as banged up as it was, they played pretty damn bad. They played pretty poorly yesterday, no doubt about it, but they still did enough to have those Bills in it at the end with a chance to win, and they couldn't do it. So if they're full strength, do I think we certainly have a better chance to win? Oh, well, you're damn right, but the Miami Dolphins fans would say that. Right? The Miami Dolphins fans would say that if they had Jalen Waddle against us and if they had Bradley Chubb and Xavier Howard against us, they would have won, and I wouldn't have blamed them for saying that. They were beating us the whole game. The Bills were either tied or trailing that whole game. So we can say that about any of these teams, really. But at the end of the day, I think that there's something to be said about yesterday being the most banged up this Bills D has been, and it certainly looked like it. Because no matter the makeshift roster that they had in there on D throughout the year, they did seem to find a way to overcome each and every week. Yesterday, it just felt like it was too big of a cross to bear. It really did. But with that said, they still did just enough. Even though it was not a good performance by any means, they still did just enough to have those Bills at it, at the end with the ability to either win the game or tie it, and they could not capitalize. But collectively, of course, yeah, They looked like a team that was down to their 10th linebacker. They certainly did. Especially when the opening possession of the second half, you just knew, right? That's where it started to hit me, where you just knew, yeah, they're not stopping these guys. And you knew that the Bills offense wasn't going to be able to run a 10-minute touchdown drive every single time they touched the ball. Zappy coming in. Zeba, I'm 22. Yes. 22 years old from South Texas. All right. South Texas. I like a little Southern Bills representation. Chose the Bills when I was 6. Been to 8 Bills games live. That's an impressive amount, Zappy, for living in Texas. Good on you. Oh, my God. They lost all of them. Wow. Man, brother, I don't even know what to say to that. That is, that's all time. That is insane. Well, you know what, brother? If it makes you feel any better, I went to 4 games this season and I went 1-3. Went 1-3, and the 3 losses I were at were the Jets week 1, about as bad of a loss they had all year. The Patriots game in Gillette, the worst loss they had all year. And last night, the most heartbreaking loss they had all year. Now, I was at the Cowboys game, but, looking back on it, who the hell cares now? So if that makes you feel any better, I went 1-3 this year alone, but 0-8. Zappy, let me know the next time you plan on going to a Bills game, so I can tell you to not go. I'll buy out your ticket just so we. I don't know. We got to find a way to get you there and reverse it. We need to get you to a game where I don't know. We got to find a perfect opportunity to get you to a game where they should freaking win, and then we can reverse this thing. But I appreciate the super chat, brother. Appreciate you representing the Bills down in Texas. That's killer. And one of these days, brother, you will get to a winning game. 0-8. One of these days. That's an impressive stat, though. I don't know how you can top that. That's pretty nuts. Alton coming in. At some point, the coaching has to be looked at, bro. 3 straight years of divisional losses, like you said. If not now, when? Well, I don't know if there is a when. That's the other thing. That's what sucks the most about last night. I don't know if there is a when. And I don't know if a firing at the coach changes things. Like, does firing a coach change the fact that this team is going to lose a decent amount of the core that they currently are putting out on display each and every week as it is right now? This team's going to look pretty damn different soon here. And this AFC talent isn't going anywhere anytime soon. In fact, it's getting better and better each and every year. So when you say if not now, when, that's why yesterday hurt the most, because I don't really know if there is a when. I don't know. I don't see it getting better than what yesterday was. I understand the coaching staff does need to be looked at to a certain extent. I definitely do. But with the knowledge in mind that there's not going to be a firing, I have a tough time really exhausting a whole lot of my thought process towards it. I also look at it from both sides of the street as well. I don't know. I just don't think that's the end all be all solution to all of these problems at hand. I don't think a different coach last night, I mean, maybe, I don't know. But is a different coach overcoming the limitations the Bills had yesterday? Are they overcoming Mahomes going against that banged up defense? I don't know. Of course, we'll never know, but I have a tough time thinking so. It's tough because I do get it. I do get it, I understand it because there's really no other way to go with your frustration other than to firing the coach after these moments. There's really nowhere else to delegate it because you're not getting rid of Josh Allen, nor should you want to, but you know how it goes. Usually after these things, people like to attack their quarterback, but you can't attack the Bills quarterback because there's no basis to. So you move on to the coach. The coach is going to be the punching bag after these games. But it's really tough for me to weigh it all on that game yesterday for McDermott when I watched what he just was able to do with this team for the last couple of months here. I'll say this. Can we just wrap it up with this? Because you know my thoughts on McDermott. I've been as open to exploring other coaching options as anybody has. But I also had said that he has an opportunity to prove that he's worthy of keeping this job. I said that he's essentially auditioning for his job, right? And I think he passed that audition with pretty flying colors. And just because you did not beat the best team in the league for the last 6 years, I mean, it's tough for me to weigh it all on that. I thought he auditioned for his job the last 2 months, and I don't know how you do much better than what he did. And I'll wrap it up with this. 2 points. One, he's not going anywhere. I understand a lot of you want him to. I understand some of you don't. And I understand some of you are down the middle like me, where I, at the moment, do not think that they should get rid of him. But I also do understand the mindset surrounding wanting to get rid of him and certainly questioning whether there's better out there. I do get that. But there's 2 points to be made. One, they're not moving him off. They're not moving off of him this year. So you might as well just stop, diverting all of your anger and your thoughts of the future of this team based on him not being, or him being the coach or not being the coach, because it's just pointless. The other point is that he's at least earned. You can't tell me he hasn't earned the right to be the coach of this team for at least next year. I just don't see how he hasn't. He's earned the right to coach this team next year, in my opinion. But as we know, every year is a whole different story. No matter what, every year, what you did before doesn't matter. You're going to be judged on a whole new playing field. And McDermott's job next year, it could change dramatically, whether he's here or he isn't, based on how next season goes. But you have to keep in mind that he's going to be here next year, and none of this is going to go one way or the other. There's not even going to be a question about it until probably again this time next year, if then. So, I don't know. I also just hate sitting here after, you go out yesterday and you lose, and now you got to sit here and just reflect on all, or not even reflect. You got to sit here and ponder about the what ifs of the future. That's what I hate about all this. The season ends, and then within one day, it's like, okay, how do we solve this? I mean, Josh Allen kind of put it perfectly. He said, we just need to find a way to score one more point than the other guys. And what he's essentially telling you is, we're about as good as these guys are, really. We're just coming up a couple points shy every time. And I just don't think that a rehaul at coaching and personnel is all of a sudden the answer. I mean, for God's sakes, the Kansas City Chiefs move off of Tyreek Hill, and they're on the cusp of going to their second straight Super Bowl without him. I mean, they're doing it without guys, with guys, doesn't matter. So we sit here today and we're like, oh, well, we got to get a new coach. We got to get a whole new wide receiver room. I mean, obviously the Bills have got to get better in various areas. There's no question there. They don't have anything at wide receiver right now. I mean, I get all that. But the overall point here is we can't just look at that game after losing by a couple of points and say everything's got to change. When I'm watching a team that has had the greatest roster maybe you've ever seen offensively completely lose one of their biggest assets, different guys interchangeable. Your best receiver right now is a rookie wide receiver that didn't really come on until the latter half of the year, and they're still getting it done. Rich with another. To be fair, almost everyone but McDermott has been held accountable. Frazier, Dorsey, special teams, etc. You got to forgive me, but what's the breaking point? All right, so let's take it piece by piece. The Frazier thing, I don't know what happened there. It doesn't seem like it ended well. And I agree with you that it certainly felt like he was held accountable when maybe he didn't need to be held accountable as much as he was. It felt like he took the entirety of the blame for that 13 seconds, and I don't think that was fair. But I don't know what was going on behind the scenes there. It did not seem to end in a positive manner, and it frankly ended in a very strange manner that I still don't quite understand. The Dorsey situation, that looked like the right move. Dorsey was held accountable because this offense wasn't doing anything, and when he gets fired, this team winds up putting out their best offensive performance collectively at the end of the year, and they end up going on a 6-game win streak, 7-1 overall heading into the playoffs. So that move was the right move. And then, special teams. Yeah, I don't know. That's just been pretty damn poor, honest to God. The execution on special teams, of course, was not far from good yesterday. I get what you're saying. But that's usually the way it goes. Usually the last person to get held accountable are the biggest names, right? The biggest pieces of the puzzle. Now you're asking what the breaking point is. Truthfully, for me, the breaking point would have been this year if it continued to go the way it was going after week 6. I think that's the breaking point. I don't know if the breaking point right now, at least, is losing in the divisional round. Now, maybe if say you do it again the next 2 years, I guess maybe it's tough to tell what the breaking point is. It's tough to tell because I don't know what the mindset of Terry Pegula is. I don't know. There are some organizations where their breaking point is incredibly high, almost to a fault. Back like when the Eagles fired Doug Peterson at 2 years removed from winning a Super Bowl. I wouldn't have done that. They thought it was the right move. I certainly didn't think it was. And now they're with Nick Sirianni, another guy who they feel like they should maybe fire. They're not going to. But if you ask the fan base, I think the majority of them would like him fired. And I don't think he should be the head coach next year. So maybe you do it a little too prematurely. But there's certainly some teams that do that. And then there's other teams that linger on to coaches for longer than maybe they should as well. The breaking point is hard to define because I don't know what the breaking point is for Terry Pegula. But the breaking point for me, if it were up to me, the breaking point to me, he got out of it alive this year. He was back against the wall. He had one exit out of there. McDermott was backed against the wall, and there was only one way out of it. Go and do pretty much what he did. It did not end the way that they wanted it to, or any of us wanted it to, but the fact that they got there based on what they did to get there, commendable. And I think he got through that only exit available to him. But if he goes out and does if they go out and do the exact same thing next year and don't overcome, and it's one of these years where they continue to regress, and they go out next year and they end up not making the playoffs, or it's a season like this year where the 6-6 record comes around and they don't go on a run, they don't overcome it, that's a breaking point to me. Because then that's just another step down. But I don't know what the breaking point for this organization is. It's really tough to tell. But to me, a missing of the playoffs, that's probably my breaking point. Yeager the Ninth. I'm a Dolphins fan. I just found this channel. You have a great speaking voice, and I love your unbiased analysis. I have to subscribe. Well, Yeager, thank you, brother. How about a nice, kind, unbiased Dolphins fan? Can we give it up for Yeager the Ninth? I mean, you are a hidden gem, brother. And it's nice to have you aboard here on the Fanatics. I mean, I find you like I find the winning lottery ticket, man. I mean, it's incredible. Appreciate that. I will say that while you bring up the topic of the Dolphins, that fan base was up. They were stoked, weren't they? So it makes it even worse. It's like, now it's like, you get to this point now where all of a sudden people want you to lose. And they expect you to lose, and they expect you to come up short again, and then you prove it right. Still working on getting all of that type of Dolphin shit off my timeline. Ever since the lead up to the AFC East title game, it was just all Dolphins on my feed, and I'm finally starting to eradicate it a little bit. Oh, it's saying I was just asking for your opinion, my guy. No. I wasn't coming at you. I don't know if you think I was, but I certainly wasn't. I think I prefaced that. I said, you brought up Sean McDermott, and I said, I'm not coming at you or anybody in particular. I said, you were the person who brought up Sean McDermott, and this is why I'm just going to talk about it real quick, because it's all I've been hearing all day. No, of course you didn't. You just asked. And it's right to ask, because everybody's been talking about it all day. Everybody's been asking all day, right? And I think it's just because we don't know what to do with ourselves today. I think everybody sits around today and doesn't know what to do with themselves. They don't have any answers. And I feel like everybody sits around and feels like somebody has to pay for this. And when it's, of course, not going to be your quarterback paying for it, well, the next best, easiest option is to just say, fire Sean McDermott. And I don't think anybody really knows the reason why they want to fire Sean McDermott. They want to fire Sean McDermott because they lose to the Chiefs. Okay, but do you have any, like, is there anything in particular from yesterday other than the terrible fake punt that, let's be honest here, it didn't end up costing them? I mean, I think there'd be a little bit more of a argument on it if it wound up really being the backbreaker. Okay, fine. But I just don't know today, like, how that's the solution for the team. I just think that everybody sits here today and they have nowhere else to go with their mind other than somebody's got to pay for this. It's got to be McDermott, because it's certainly not going to be Josh Allen. And I get it. I do get it. Because I feel lost as well. I don't know where to go with any of it. I just feel like I'm exhausted. I just feel lost. Every year, I just feel lost. I just feel like I am plummeted into a purgatory of nothingness. Because it's always what it ends in. No matter how great the team is, no matter how great the story was, it always ends in nothing. Sadness, regret, anger, and then all of that culminates into just nothing. There's nothing to show for it. There's nothing. And you don't know what to do with yourself as a fan, really. So I think that's where a lot of people are, and what they do is they just try to find a source of blame. You know, we'll get into, after all these super chats, we're going to get into the game, because I don't have a direct source of blame after last night. I have a variety of elements throughout the game that I think can be pinpointed to pose blame on when it comes to this loss. I don't have any one gigantic, like if this game was a dartboard, I don't have one bullseye that I think nails the reason the Bills lost this game last night, other than, I won't do this, and I don't think it's right. That would be the injuries, right? But that's what every team's bullseye would be. It's what every team's bullseye would be. You know, that would be the Dolphins' bullseye, and it's fair to say, like, the Dolphins are a different team when you have 6 of your best players out there. Certainly, the Bills are a different team if Matt Milano's out there, and Tre'Davious White's out there, and Terrell Bernard's out there, right? And Taylor Rapp's out there. It's a different team. Of course it is, but it's just not the way that this league goes. It's unfortunate. I'll be honest, you know, we had some real shit luck defensively this year with the injuries, to the point where it was to the point where they couldn't overcome it at the end. But look at all the other teams this year whose seasoned literally just ended in the middle of it because their quarterback went down. Knock on wood, the luck we've had with the 17 and the way he plays and not getting hurt. I mean, it's incredible. Look at all of these teams whose offenses just get destroyed and they're gone. They're done. I mean, it happened to the Ravens the last couple of seasons, right? It happens to the Bengals this year. It happens nonstop. And the Bills had it happen to them defensively this year, and they did an extraordinary job of overcoming it. It just got to the point where at the end, you had two forces going up against each other that they're repelling, man. And that's a really banged up defense and maybe the greatest quarterback to ever play the game, and a pissed off team that wants to somehow prove that they are underdogs and that they, that they're not going anywhere. I don't even know how do you describe it? Somehow the Chiefs still feel like they are underdogs. I guess that they were yesterday. Bills were favored in that game. You got two opposing forces going at each other yesterday that are not meant to mesh, and that's a really banged up D and a generational team with a generational quarterback and a generational offense. Bartek saying, I just want to say I love you, brother. Much love to you, BT. Saying thank you for always making us feel better. Maybe one day we'll be on the other side. We know JA will never give up. Well, much love to you, Bartek. Thanks for the constant support, brother. You know it always means the world to me. I hope everybody feels a bit better as we yell and talk and say whatever, I'm feeling a little bit better right now. But we haven't even gotten into the game yet, and we're like almost 2 hours in. God knows how long we're going to be running tonight. I hope you guys canceled your plans. I knew tonight would run. I don't even know how long. Maybe we'll hit the 4 or 5 hour mark. Who the hell knows? I'm just realizing we haven't even talked about the specifics of this game yet. But we've had it easily around 700 steady in here all night, which is freaking awesome. So if you could hit a like and subscribe and comments and whatever, go ahead and do it, because this is the grand finale. Don't you just ever think what would it be like for the grand finale on the smoke break one of these years to come on here and celebrate a bowl? Imagine what that would look like. Imagine what that would be like. Because it just feels like this is deja vu for me. This is like the fourth or fifth time now that I've had to do this at the end of the year. Feels the exact same every single time. Bartek says we know that Josh Allen will never give up, and man, that's certain. I feel bad for that guy today, man. You feel bad for yourself today. You feel bad for the fan base today, right? Rightfully so. I don't know if there's anybody I feel worse for than Josh Allen. Because it doesn't matter. No one's going to remember the nuances of the game. They're going to remember the two quarterbacks that played, and they're going to remember the one that won and the one that lost. Is that right? No. Is that fair? No. Should it be that way? No. Is it that way? Yep. Is that the reality of this current the way the NFL is currently set up? Yep. Absolutely. And he knows it. And we all know it. And it sucks, but it's the truth. And this is what's going to come of this. And he knows it. That's probably why it's not just that they lose yesterday. That alone would have him as sick as he's visibly coming across at the podium. But it's the fact that his legacy is just getting run over by a freight train. Because he's sitting there knowing he possesses the talents of an all-time great, and he's watching one of the other all-time greats take every single thing from him. Everything. Allen today has as many big accolades. I mean, outside of the division titles, I keep referencing that because I don't want to overlook them. They to somebody like me, they mean something who had none of that growing up. But outside of the big accolades, right? I mean, or when it comes to the big accolades, rather, Josh Allen's got none of them. And how's history going to treat Josh Allen? The people that don't grow up in this era, the people who look back and weren't able to watch him or were too young to remember him. How's history going to treat Josh Allen? And the way it's shaping up right now, it's going to be, it's sad. It's not going to be what he ever dreamt of, and it's not going to be what he deserves, because he's going to be looked back on as Dan Marino, right? And I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about what it is right now. He's going to be looked back at as I don't know who else. Warren Moon, Phillip Rivers, maybe. And it's just not right. And it's not accurate. And it's not fair. But it's the reality. And he's got to be aware of it. And it's got to make him sick. Because it makes me sick thinking about it for him. I mean, the guy comes in to this league and now currently possesses a record that he and only he holds, and that's 4 consecutive seasons with 40-plus touchdowns. He scores 50 touchdowns today. His postseason numbers are absolutely off the charts. His numbers against these Kansas City Chiefs every time they play him in the playoffs, collectively, when you total them up, they're off the charts, and the guy's got nothing to show for it. And all these other guys do, even if they haven't won a Super Bowl. Lamar is going to have 2 MVPs to show for it. Maybe a Super Bowl here. We don't know. But even if he doesn't, even if Lamar falls on his face next week, he's got 2 MVPs in his trophy case. Even if Burrow never comes back the same after the injury, he's got a Super Bowl appearance under his plate and 2 AFC championship appearances. And then what we know what Mahomes has. Allen's got none of it, man. And it's sick. Because he's one of the best players I've ever seen. And he's a Buffalo Bill. And it still has resulted in nothing. How does that make any sense? I mean, growing up, I never thought I'd have one of the best players ever be on my football team. And I have that now. And it still doesn't make a difference in the grand result. It makes the viewing experience 10 times more fun. It makes the rooting experience 10 times more exciting. It makes the hope 10 times higher. But the result is still the same as it was every season that I experienced growing up. And that's insane. And that's sickening and it's sad. And I feel freaking bad for that guy. Wears it on his sleeve every time. Never blames anybody else. Hell, going into the locker room yesterday, and I had a bird's eye view of this of the stands. I saw it even before the video came out. I was watching it unfold. Tyler Bass is walking off the field. I mean, you want to talk about somebody who is got to be as dead as you can be while still having a heartbeat. And Allen ran up to him from off the field into the walkway of the locker room or the tunnel and hugged him and then walked in with him. And of course, took the blame on himself at the podium afterwards when talking about the kick. Even blamed himself on his footwork when Dawson Knox got blown up by Chris Jones at the end of the game there, where he got bumped into, and I think it threw off his timing on that throw to Shakir. And I know that's been a big argument today, whether it did or it didn't. Well, I think it probably did, because Allen skipped the ball in front of Shakir about 3 feet in front of him. And we know the guy's certainly capable of throwing a 25-yard pass. And when in reality, you take all this blame, not just him taking it himself, but he took all the blame from the idiots today. And I'll tell you this, okay? And I want to be perfectly clear. If your takeaway from yesterday is that that's on Josh Allen, he can't beat the Chiefs. Josh Allen's not good enough to overcome the best of the best. Josh Allen's not good enough to move on from the divisional. Josh Allen's not good enough to propel this Buffalo team to the promised land. You know, Josh Allen's not capable of getting it done. You are a special type of dumb. And there's no other way to put it. You're a special type of stupid. And you're either doing it on purpose to get a rise, and I know there's plenty of those out there, and that's different. That's a different story. I'm talking about the people who genuinely believe he is a problem, who genuinely believe that this team had a prayer yesterday if he doesn't play a damn near perfect football game up until the last couple of minutes, where we'll talk about it. I don't know what went wrong there. But the thing of it is that it's so easy to pinpoint the one or two plays Josh Allen doesn't make and ignore the 15 or so plays throughout the game that everybody else didn't make that more than likely was the major part of the recipe that led to a loss. A lot easier. You know, if Josh Allen's blaming the loss yesterday, and say we're making a recipe, we're making a big old Bills loss stew. Delish. I've had that. I've had a bowl of that a time or two before. Hot and ready. Say we're making that big old Bills playoff exit stew, making a big old cauldron of it. And I need all my recipes. Josh Allen's blame in that loss yesterday, he's about 2 shakes of the salt shaker to me. Give it a little more bite. Everybody wants to dial in on the 1 or 2 things he didn't do, ignore the 35 other things he did do to have it even be a competitive game, and also at the same time ignore the 10, 15 plus other things that everybody surrounding him on the sidelines, on the field, wherever didn't do either. It all gets ignored. But it's Josh Allen's fault. It's got to be. I don't know how these guys do it, especially a guy like him. Imagine doing what you do last night or doing what you did in the 13-second game. Like, imagine being that good, performing that well, getting your team in that spot. Imagine doing all of that and losing and then being blamed for the loss and not being able to defend yourself because you can't, because you're the face of the franchise, and that's not how it works. It's got to be so, I can't even imagine how tough. But it's a special breed of dumb. And it's no, I don't mean to insult you. But if you find yesterday to be the Josh Allen problem, then I just don't know. I don't know how you're functioning 100% properly upstairs. I don't know how that's possible. That, or you just have a completely wrong view of how this sport's played, I guess. Because if you watch that game and think that he's the problem, then I think you've just been conditioned to think that all quarterbacks at all times have to be flawless, or else they are, they are the reason you lose. And the thing of it is he's done that so many times that when he has the 1 or 2 things that don't happen, that don't go right, then it's just so easy to say, well, he didn't play perfect, so it's his fault. Just looking at some comments real quick. And we got so many super chats. We're just rolling through these right now. We'll keep rolling on them before we get into the ins and outs of the game. just because I want to keep up on them. Real quick, though, before we do, about to approach the 2-minute mark or the 2-hour mark. Wow, we are rocking and rolling tonight. And it's all courtesy of my friends over at BetUS, who proudly sponsor the smoke break. And it's a pleasure to have BetUS on board. And it was a pleasure to have BetUS on board for the 2023 football season. And it's still going on, folks. The Buffalo Bills might be done, but the season's still trekking along, and you still can place your bets on the remaining NFL games, as well as NBA games, NHL games, you name it. BetUS has it. Some of the best customer service in the game, fast and easy payouts, and of course, that 125% sign-up bonus in the link in the description below. You can bet on parlays, player props, teasers, you name it. It's all on BetUS, including some of the best lines and options for the upcoming divisional or championship game, rather. And then, of course, the Super Bowl, where we know that's the biggest betting holiday of the year. You can do it all over on BetUS. And speaking of that Super Bowl, BetUS is giving away Super Bowl tickets. Now, look, the Bills aren't going to be making it. It sucks. But it still wouldn't suck to go watch a Super Bowl in person. And it might be a lot less nerve-wracking not having the Bills in it if you actually win the tickets and go. Because if you win the tickets and go, you have nothing to worry about other than having a good time. So here's how you enter. You go over to BetUS. You click that link in the description below. Sign up. Get that 125% sign-up bonus. Then go over to the NFL page on the website. Place a $25 wager on any NFL line. Screenshot that. And by the way, $25 or more. So you can do 25 or more, but starts at 25. Screenshot that bet. Head over to Twitter and post it. And then in that post, tag BetUS and tag the friend that you would take to the Super Bowl with you. Then add hashtag SBVIII or III. And then boom, let it rip. And you're entered to win. They will be doing an announcement of the winner in a not even all that long from now, a couple of days, I believe. So get in on that as soon as you can. The link's down in the description below, so make sure to enter. And for all the details, here's a quick message with all of the little intricacies of that giveaway and all the information from BetUS.
BetUS, America's favorite sports book, where you can bet on everything, anytime. Sportsbook, casino, horse racing, live betting, and more. We have the best bonuses in the industry. That's right, get a 125% sign-up bonus. And to celebrate our 30-year anniversary, we are giving up to 30 risk-free bets, a truck, Super Bowl tickets, and more. Don't miss out. Play smart. Join now. BetUS, where the game begins.
Love it. Make sure to go take advantage of that. I'm checking in real quick. I just want to make sure I double check on that giveaway, just because I think the announcement's coming up this week, I believe. I'll find that before the end of the show, but make sure you get in on that, just because it's coming up to an end soon, and I want you guys to have an opportunity to win those tickets, because that would be sweet. All right, let's get back to some super chats here. Where did we leave off? Left off with Bartek. Let's start it off again with JDR, and he's saying, had their best chance this year and blew it. I mean, that's really the way I see it. It's unfortunate, but that's just the way I see it. I see that this team had an opportunity in front of them that they really hadn't had before, and that was the opportunity to play these Chiefs at home, the opportunity to get the Chiefs while they seemed like they were at their lowest. You also have Joe Burrow out of the equation, who has been a real pain in your ass the last couple of years, right? And they knocked you out last year, and they beat you this year pretty soundly with him. In prime time, you had that off the plate. You got that 2 seed when it felt like it was pretty much impossible to do so. It just felt like things were stacking up right for these Bills. And you also look at what they have coming up ahead of them, and that's a salary cap that is not going to be friendly for them. Josh Allen's contract kicking in pretty extensively. You're also looking at guys aging out of this roster, and free agents are abundant coming up here. The Bills have at least 10 or so free agents coming up that are going to be major either retentions or losses, and that's all going to factor into the salary cap as well. So this team also isn't going to be the same. And meanwhile, you have these other teams that are going to be back to healthy and they're going to be better. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Jets should certainly be better with Aaron Rodgers, and that's going to be right in your division. Joe Burrow will be back, and he will be healthy. The C.J. Stroud experiment's going to be 1 year older, 1 year wiser, 1 year better. I think the Chiefs are just going to get better. If this was their down year, what's next after another draft and another offseason with the ability to add to it? If this is their down year and they're still in the AFC Championship, they're not going anywhere anytime soon. If anything, they're going to be getting better. And then what about these other AFC teams that are going to be drafting quarterbacks near the top of the draft this year that could inevitably be the next Houston Texans as well? That's right around the corner too. This is a loaded draft class this year, and there could be several teams that have the cap space to build around a generational quarterback that they end up drafting in the top few picks should they end up hitting the way people anticipate some of these guys being able, to have the potential to do. So it's not going to be any easier anytime soon. Not to say it's ever easy, but it felt like this was their best opportunity that they've had. It also feels like moving forward, it really could have been the best opportunity they have in the near future as well. And that's really, what above all to me makes this hurt the most. Yes, of course, the loss, the season over, that's what sucks. That's what always sucks about losing in the playoffs. And then you add the fact that you lose to the Chiefs again. It's sickening, obviously. But when you think about the long-term effects of this loss, the woulda, coulda, shouldas that I feel like we're going to be thinking about, that to me is what's the most painful. No doubt is saying Andy has been head coach 14 years, Sean 7. Yes. I think Andy Reid's been a head coach for longer than that. I'm gonna double check how long he was. I think he was in Christ. I think he was in. Wasn't he in Philly for 14 years alone? But Andy Reid, when he was in Philly, I think he got to at least one Super Bowl. I think two. But I'm almost positive he was in Philly for 14 years, wasn't he not? Yeah. So Andy Reid's been coaching for 25 years. And I believe, he was the coach of the Eagles from 1999 to 2012. So going on 25 seasons, or he was at his 25th season. Next year will be his 26th season as a head coach. So that's the thing we were talking about earlier where it's like, oh, you got to jump on the guy and get rid of him. I'm not saying Sean McDermott's Andy Reid. I mean, there are two different styles of coaches to begin with, but everyone in Philly wanted Andy Reid gone when he couldn't get over the hump and win one with Terrell Owens and Donovan McNabb, Brian Westbrook, right? So the same guy that we think we can't beat and can't get past right now is the same guy that everybody wanted gone in a whole different situation. So it's crazy how things go. It's not just the coach. Sometimes it's certainly one of the biggest issues that has to go. And I think time will continue to tell if that ends up being the need for this team. But the way that this year ended, I don't know how the solution in this given moment is fire Sean McDermott. Laura is saying, hey, Bot, tough loss. Since you were there, can you address if wind affected the Bass field goal attempt? Just curious. It's a great question. I had the unfortunate, let's see if I have a picture. I have the unfortunate reality, or the unfortunate pleasure, I think would be the better way to put it, of telling you that I sat directly behind that goalpost. So nobody in the stadium or in the world maybe had a better view of that second iteration of wide right than I. In fact, here it is. There's me and Dad, and there's that goalpost right behind us that had a ball travel to the right side of it at the end to lose. Now, the question was the wind a big effect? In fact, no. So much so that we were actually discussing it beforehand, how the wind had certainly died down. Now, not to say there wasn't any wind, but it's a January night in Buffalo. I don't care if it's the nicest night in the world, there's going to be some wind. But if we're talking about wind to the point of what it was like last week, where it was weather advisory type shit? No. And you could tell that it felt like Bass missed that one right off the leg. Now there was wind going from left to right, but I don't think it had the effect on the ball the way that it ended up looking. That ball, the wind, in my opinion, the way that it felt in the stadium, maybe it was different down on the field, but I like to look up, of course, at the little orange pylons on top of the goalpost to see how bad the wind was. The way I had looked at it going into that kick, they really weren't whipping around, not nearly as much, at least, as they were in the beginning of the game. Bass almost missed a extra point earlier in the game on the opposite end zone, the exact same way. Kicked it straight, rolled to the right a bit, and it barely went in. So it looked like that was just something he had going on yesterday. Not being able to read it and kicking from right to left. But I do not think the win was as much of a factor as maybe it seemed, or many might have thought, based on the fact that it's a cold night in Buffalo and the weather's been a topic of conversation as of late in Buffalo. The way I saw it, not nearly as impactful as that miss ended up looking like. I just think he missed it. I wouldn't doubt it had some impact, not enough to blow it all the way right like it ended up being. Chandler Bing coming in. Hate to say it, but there's a strong correlation with arguably both of the two best dynasties of all time. Buffalo Bills. No reason to believe we will be back every year, but no reason not to. Go Bills. And that's the way we all have to look at it. Appreciate it, Chandler. That's the way we all have to look at it. It's the way we have looked at it. And you got to remember, I, as well as you and all of us, I'll be prisoner of the moment for a little bit here, where I just think there's no way. Not no way, but, you're not guaranteed to get back. But it's hard not to think that way when year after year you get awfully close, you squander it, and you just wonder how many times you get an opportunity. How many times do you get a chance to do something special when you don't capitalize on it? And then, because of that, how can you sit back and think, well, I'll continue to get a chance? It's what all these guys think, and they'll tell you. In fact, I was listening earlier, Colin Cowherd had Mark Sanchez on, and people forget, man, Mark Sanchez went to back-to-back AFC East championships with Rex Ryan and the New York Jets. And he said, they were talking about the Bills. And he said that, man, we thought we were going back. We 100% thought we were going back, and they never ended up making the playoffs again. In fact, I don't think the Jets have been to the playoffs since, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if the Jets have been to the playoffs since. I'm 99% positive. And he was telling you, as the quarterback of a team that went to 2 consecutive AFC championships, which is crazy to think that is more than the Bills have accomplished with Josh Allen, the Jets, and Mark Sanchez. And he was telling you, we had no shadow of a doubt we would be back, and they never ended up making the playoffs again. So, I'm sure Dan Marino thought he'd be back to a Super Bowl, never did. Sure, Phillip Rivers thought one of these years this great Chargers team is going to get to a Super Bowl, never did. Like you said, no reason not to think you can't, but it's also, I think, a bit naive to think that you continue to get these good a chances as well. No reason not to think that the Bills can't find a way with Josh Allen one of these years, but there's also plenty of reason to think that they're not going to have as great of a setup as they did this year, or maybe a couple of years ago in the 13-second game. The more you continue to scratch off your chances, the less opportunities, the less scratchers you have, the less space you have to scratch off. That's just the way I see it. Because these seasons are long, man. These seasons are long. And it's amazing how they just end in 1 3-hour event, one game. But when you do look back at the fact that it just feels like, oh, it's just one season. Well, one season is a long time, right? And it adds and it adds up and it adds up and it adds up. And you just wonder when you look at what the team did to go all in and really build a championship contender, the fact that they never even got to another AFC championship, much less a Super Bowl, is awfully, awfully, awfully disappointing. And they've had their chances. And it's just, for me, it's tough to think that you're going to continuously keep getting solid chance after solid chance when you know how hard they are to come by in this league. Tyler coming in. What's going to happen next year with the cap hell? Well, that's going to be interesting. And we'll have to see what the priority is for this team and what direction they want to go in and who they, want to keep and who they don't. And believe me, that's what the offseason is going to be for. We'll have the entire offseason to dedicate our time and our energy towards figuring out what the Bills are going to do with this cap situation. But it's going to be a situation nonetheless. And they're going to have to figure out who they want to keep, who they want to move off of, and who they want to restructure, and who, is going to be willing to be a part of this front office's mission towards getting under this number. Certainly some restructuring is going to have to be implemented. You'd probably think perhaps Josh Allen's end a bit. Who knows? As his contract really starts to kick in this upcoming season. But we'll see. Either way, though, this Bills team is going to have to make some significant moves in order to get underneath that number. And that's not including the fact that they're going to have to make some pretty serious additions, you'd think, as well, in order to continue to allow this team to have these chances we're talking about. Because you can't sit on your laurels while the rest of these teams are going to continue to try to build and compete. They're going to have a banger draft. That's the key. I mean, you look at a couple of these teams now that are starting to rise, and it's all based on what they did in the draft. Green Bay Packers, Detroit Lions. I mean, the amount of rookies and second-year guys that are cornerstone players for these franchises, the Bills have got to have a killer draft this upcoming season, and it has to have a focal point surrounding the offense. It has to. It just does. When Khalil Shakir is my best option, who has really come along, it's no slight at him, but he was not brought onto this team to be your best option in a divisional round playoff game. And that's what he was last night. This team has to have a killer draft offensively. It just has to happen. Fabio coming in. Starting linebacker AJ Klein was on his way to vacation with his family days before the game, was out on the field. Chiefs targeted him over and over. Yeah. So, like I say all the time, I hate to make excuses for losses based on injuries, and I won't do it for last night just because they still had their chances despite all that. But when you look at what this team was all year with the injuries and their willingness, or not willingness, but their ability to overcome it, last night, just what you saw on the field showed you it was just one too many guys down. And when you're going up against a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer, arguably the best tight end of all time, and you're down to guys in their driveway packing up for a vacation to have to guard them, you're going to be put in a real tough spot. And when you got one of the best of all time throwing him the football to get in the end zone and kill you, you're double screwed. And he got in the end zone twice yesterday. I couldn't tell you the last time Travis Kelce got in the end zone twice. And that had a lot to do, I'm sure, with the banged up linebacker unit for this Buffalo Bills team. So it was real unfortunate that it wound up being the way it was. But, shout out to AJ Klein last week. I thought he came in and did a real solid job. Just yesterday was a tough ask for these guys to go and shut down one of the all-timers. When, like you said, you're halfway out the door on vacation with your family. Matt Royer coming in. Endless cycle of pain and misery being a Bills fan. I heard that. Makes me feel bad for raising my 2-year-old daughter to be a fan and setting her up for this. Love the show, Z-Bob. Much love, Matt. No, don't be sad. Let me just say this. This all sucks. It sucks. I mean, it totally blows. I can't think of shit that sucks worse than this when it comes to first world problems, right? The feeling is terrible. The emotional drainage, really even the physical drainage, awful. The investment you put into the team all year long, it's exhausting to have it come down to this and just end like that. But even with that yesterday, right? With all of that, I'm still in that crowd with my old man, the reason I'm a fan, and we had a ball, me and my dad. You know, go all the way home from Connecticut, so I don't see my parents nearly as much as I used to, of course, living at home. Go up, get to see my mom and dad, and then get in the car, and me and my dad sit, just him and I, tailgate all day, go to the game together, have a ball at the game, hold on to hope till the very last second. And then when it doesn't go our way, get to go and share each other's misery together in the car, stuck in traffic for 4 hours, and talk about it for however long, and then commiserate and whatever afterwards. I guess what I'm getting at is that's all because of the Bills. I get to do all that because of the Bills. So good, bad, or indifferent, you get to share that with the people you love, and that's what makes being a fan the coolest thing ever. 99% of it will be misery. And I don't know how to say this without sounding insane, but for some reason, it's what brings the best out of you when it comes to experiencing it with others. I don't know how to explain it. It brings life out of you. It brings you together. It gives you a common ground, a commonality. It just brings you together, man. I know that the adage, the NFL marketing scheme, football is family. It is to me. And I think that it is to a lot of people. And despite the L's and stuff, it hasn't affected any of us. Nights like last night have happened repeatedly for this fan base over a 50-year period, and it hasn't wavered anybody really. And it's in a weird way what makes the family element of it even better. I don't even know how to describe it. And what it will make what will come maybe one of these days, hopefully, that much more unbelievable. It will make whenever they find a way to do it, one of these times, I mean, hopefully I am above sea level to see it, man. I mean, I hope I'm not chewing on dirt 6 feet under. But if and when that comes, it's going to make that moment 50 million times more incredible. It's why I'm going to be pulling for the Detroit Lions over the next couple of weeks, because I know what those people got to be feeling. And if it can't be the Bills, I hope somebody gets to feel that, because I know what that feels like. And I hope that those people get to experience what I've wanted to experience my whole life. I can't be selfish about it. Bills are done. I hope those guys get that. I hope they get to experience that, because I can't imagine. Because I know when it happens, it's going to be one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life. I know it. When you put this much time and effort and dedication and love and passion into something, and it's turned into nothing forever, and it's unconditional. You care, of course. Obviously, we care. We're sitting here for going on 2.5 hours still. We're going on about this, and we're going to do it forever, right? You obviously care, but you don't care. It doesn't affect you negatively enough to where you'll walk away, because you can't walk away. It's what you are. It's who you are. It's what this team is to you, right? The payoff for that, I don't even know what that would feel like. It's tough to even try and quantify in my mind. It's tough to even really think about it being a reality, But guess what I'm getting at when it comes back to your super chat, Matt, is you say you feel bad for raising your 2-year-old daughter into it. I know you do. And my dad tells me all the time it's his fault, and it certainly is. I mean, it is his damn fault. But it's one of the coolest things ever. And it totally blows a lot of the time. But you and your daughter will have something cool for a long time, and you get to share in that misery together. And as we all know, especially on the annual therapy session, season-ending therapy session on the smoke break, misery loves company. And there's nothing better than being with a family member, sharing in that sorrow of something like what happened last night. So jaded coming in. We were all sacrifices to the pit in the end. Isn't that the funny thing? It's true. We all were. We all ended up being sacrificed. I do wonder if they made an announcement over the PA system and said, halftime. Maybe, I guess at the end of the game when it's over, we are taking volunteers to all go sacrifice ourselves for the pit next season. I wonder how many people they would have gotten in the moment. I bet you more than you'd think. Hell, at that point, I was so down low, maybe I'd go do it myself. Michael coming in. Steelers fan here. I think that McDermott needs to go out and hire an OC that can give Allen more help and less hero ball type production. Appreciate it, Michael. And, Michael knows probably as a Steelers fan what it's like to have an OC that feels limiting. And people right now, that's another argument I've been seeing today about Joe Brady and what's the story there. Once again, another topic for the offseason that we'll have plenty of time to talk about. Look, Joe Brady did an incredible job. You're faced with a daunting task, backed into a corner, and your first opportunity as an OC for this team is taking over a guy's job who just got fired in a situation where you're pretty much one loss away from a playoff or from not being in the playoffs. Not a good spot to be in, right? And a crazy-ass spot to be in. And he answered the call. I mean, he went nuts. He went crazy. 7-1, man, and had this team down in the near the red zone, on the outside of the red zone to win to win it and go to the AFC Championship. He deserves 100% the right to be considered for this job next year. I don't necessarily think that he should be given it instantly right now in this moment, like without any other consideration. There should be other consideration just because there should be. Like Michael's saying, you go out and you get an OC that maybe has other ideas to get Allen involved in ways that we haven't seen before. You don't know what's out there. You got to go see what's out there. But I also will say that for those thinking Joe Brady was limiting yesterday, and maybe to a degree towards the end he was, we're going to talk about that in a little bit here. But, I wonder how much more he could have done with a full offseason and a full opportunity to implement things that just weren't capable of being done in such a short time span in which he was given to take this team over. So we don't know if there's a whole lot more to be discovered with Joe Brady. And time will tell there if he does get the gig. I would imagine he does. Allen already, of course, gave him the endorsement. I just see them going that direction. It just seems like something they're going to do, would do, will do. But I do hope that they go out and are willing to interview other candidates just to see what's out there and what that looks like. Because I'm open to anything. I thought Joe Brady was great. I'd be fine with the hire. And I certainly think he would be deserving of it if they gave it to him. I would not have any trepidations towards, the Pagulas or Brandon Beane for making that move. But I'm more than willing to see what else is out there and see what that could mean. Because we've seen time and time again, each and every year, what the season results in. So I'm always going to be open to new things that hopefully end up being that much bit more of a difference. That could be the ultimate difference. Because as I keep saying with the Chiefs, they just have that little bit of difference every year, just that little bit of difference. If the Bills can keep honing in on that, but I think that Joe Brady could be that piece if he gets a full off season. Who knows what else there is to discover with him? And I want to talk about more. We're going to get through all these super chats, and then we're going to get into the more specifics of the game. I know I keep saying that, but there's a ton of super chats. But I want to talk about Joe Brady in particular in a little bit, and the game plan yesterday. Shout out AZ with the super chat. Appreciate you. Mike coming in saying they have to trade Diggs, get value while they can. I don't know what's going to happen with Diggs. I know the contract's pretty ironclad. I don't know if they're going to be able to trade him. I don't even know if that's possible. I have to look at it again, but I know that it's a really difficult contract to get out of on either side. I don't know if that's on the table, and I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what he wants. I don't know what they want. I don't know. It's a very odd situation. I also, I wonder what the end game is here. Wide receiver speaking, because they don't got a lot going on there right now. They don't got a lot going on in the wide receiver locker room at all. I understand Diggs hasn't done much at the end of the year here. Didn't do much yesterday at all. You could argue maybe cost us a little bit yesterday, right? Maybe a lot of it. Who knows? But he's still their best option by a wide margin. So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting offseason. With the cap situation, the amount of free agents, the Diggs element will be interesting. I don't know what it comes of just because of his contract. I don't know if we see anything jarring there. I would lean more heavily towards no. But who the hell knows? Who knows where he's at? Because getting rid of him is that doesn't seem like it's going to be feasible when it comes to this cap situation unless something gets figured out on the other end with another team. I don't know how all that works. Once again, that's something for the offseason we'll certainly dive into because that's all we got to look forward to right now. All right. January 22nd, offseason time. Yay. Favorite time of the year. Talking about what can they do next year so this shit doesn't happen again. Just not healthy enough, says Mitchell. And we need a wide receiver too, a young one and some youth in the back end of the secondary, in my opinion. Yeah. They need to draft at least like 3 receivers in this draft in various rounds. I mean, you got to just start taking cracks. You have to. I mean, good on Shakir. He really came along. He wound up being one of the most reliable options for this team, which is crazy because I don't think anybody saw that coming. You're going to need more of that. You're just going to need more of that. And I don't know if Gabe Davis comes back. I'd guess he probably doesn't. He said to the media yesterday, or maybe it was this morning. Who the hell knows? I'm losing track of time. It was probably this morning, but he said he's open to coming back to the team, but he also anticipates hitting free agency. I don't know if they bring him back. There's a big part of me that thinks they don't. So that's your quote unquote wide receiver 2 right now. He could be gone. We don't know what's going to go on with Stephon Diggs. No one knows. No, I mean, what does he know? What does the team know? I don't know. They got to just start taking lottos on wide receivers because that's the biggest area of concern right now in my eyes. And then, yeah, you look at the secondary, Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, very, very soon to be gone. Could be as gone as soon as this year, you'd think. It kind of felt like it was a farewell speech yesterday when those two took the podium post-game. It really did feel like that was a goodbye. They didn't close out the idea of coming back, but the way if you go and listen to it, it just there felt like a finality to it, and it wouldn't shock anybody if it was. And that's a big roll, 2 rolls, 2 big clown shoe sized sneakers to fill. So I agree with you. Mitch. Rich saying, love you, Z-Bot. Glad I found you, brother. It's therapeutic watching and listening to you. Super Bowl parade will entail a ton of champagne and nose beers, said Rich. Yeah, it'll be nutty, man. It'll be nutty. Much love, Rich. I'm glad you found me as well. I appreciate having you, brother. Big time. Yeah, that'll be nuts. I'm lucky I survived that week if that happens. I don't even care if I do. I just want to experience it. Oh, one of these days. There's always next year, says the Bills fan. Nothing I hate more, though, than the guy on Twitter, like 5 minutes after the game ends and the season is over and the Bills lose in a heartbreaking fashion again. And they're like, don't worry, gang. We still got next year. They're not going anywhere. Love my team. And it's like the game ended like 45 seconds ago. And you're like, yo, can I just hate myself for 20 minutes before we get into that talk? Like, can I just hate my life for 20 minutes before we start getting all positive? Is that too much to ask? Don't worry, gang. Chin up. We still got 17. You know? It's like, Oh, I don't want to hear it right now. I want to be sick. It's like every year. It's every year. They will do it. I know it. I can feel it in my. I mean, I'm just making shit up. I feel like I just see it everywhere. I'm all about. I'm all about positivity, but maybe I'm not. I don't know. Give me a couple days at least to just hate everything and everybody. How about the guy who got the Bills Super Bowl tattoo the other day? Did you see this? Did you see the guy who got the Bills Super Bowl tattoo a couple days ago, and he was in the stands crying after the game? I don't know if that was a fever dream or if I actually saw that. I guess it could be worse. You could have gotten the tat. I could have gotten the tat 2 days early and be sitting here with it. I guess it could be worse. I mean, my man was crying his eyes out. What was the thought process there? Holy shit. How do you do that? And then the dude crying on the TV. I'm lucky that wasn't me. I didn't cry. No. What's that Ariana Grande song? Ain't got no tears left to cry. I really don't. I got no more tears left to cry. I've cried them all. I'm out of tears. I'm out of tears. I'm saving my final tears for some positive tears. Good tears. That poor bastard, though. They caught him good, the cameras. I mean, he was all of us. Whether you were doing it externally or internally, he was all of us. I mean, he's taking a beat down on social, that poor guy. But damn it all. That was all of us inside or out. I don't care if you were doing it for real or you were doing it internally. And that was my heart was looking like that, dude. I think that was the perfect embodiment of where we were in that game. And that was everyone had their highest hopes for that game. So I understand letting the emotions get the best of you because it's just you had to have had the best. You had to have had the most confidence you've had in a while. And you had to have thought this was it. This was the chance. And it all just comes to an end. And sometimes you just, you get emotional, man. Craig McDowell, you are right about JA's legacy. This makes me so angry. Number 15 has Reed, Kelsey, Spags, Veach to support him. And who do the Bills have? Let's be real. A bunch of slightly above replacement level support. That's a real thing. It's a real thing. I mean, you can go on Twitter and pretend that the QB win stat doesn't exist. You can go on Twitter and pretend it's a team game and it'll all be remembered as such. You can do all that. I mean, you're not necessarily wrong, but that's not the way it's going to be viewed. It's not the way it's going to be discussed. It's not the way it's going to be remembered. It's the harsh reality of this business. And as it's going right now, history is not going to be very kind to Josh Allen. And it's unfortunate because if you lived through it and watched it, you'll understand that it should have been very kind to him. And you're going to look back and you're going to see the other guy, 15 in red. He's going to be touted as Brady throughout the rest of history as time goes on here. Him and Brady, I mean, it happens now. They're mentioned in the same breath all the time. And And, and Allen, if they make the Jordan documentary of Mahomes, Allen's going to be a big part of that. He'll be a big centerpiece in that, right? For all the wrong reasons. And it's not even his fault. It's just it's the shitty reality of what it is, but it is what it is. There's no other way to put it. AZ saying, hey, I'll just keep it simple tonight. Just wanted to say thank you so much for a great podcast season. Big Bill fan from Toronto. Me and my two boys love the show. Great work. We'll get there one day. Much love, AZ. Shout out to you and the boys up in Toronto. I appreciate you tuning in all year, AZ. Really do. And yep, one day. That's the tattoo that everybody should get. Screw going and getting a Super Bowl tattoo 2 days before the divisional round. Go and get the one-day tattoo because that'll be relevant. That's more likely to be relevant than the Super Bowl tattoo. Let's all just go get one of these days tattoos. Bills man coming in. We'd be 8-9. We'd be an 8-9 win team if we didn't have JA-17. I mean, yeah, if that. If. Shit, they were almost an 8-9 team with him this year. Think about it. I think 8-9's honest to God, it's probably generous without him. It's probably pretty damn generous, honestly. But it's his fault. Assuredly, it's Josh Allen's fault. And by the way, he's not being given blame. Or it's not that he doesn't deserve criticism and blame. Do I need to keep explaining myself? I do this all the time on here. It's not that he isn't deserving of blame. It's that I see the constant 100% blame game on Josh Allen being spewed by a bunch of morons all the time. And it's crazy. Like, can I give you an example? Let me give you an example. This happened last night, and I had to turn it off. I literally reached for the dial and turn it off. I don't do this often. Me and my dad driving back from Buffalo, got the radio on, and I don't know who the hell this guy was. Some late night radio guy. Never heard of him before. It's like 1 a.m., so I have no idea what's going on. It's a radio guy. And he's talking about the games, and he goes, yeah, and once again, Josh Allen craps down his leg. And I'm like, dude, turn this guy the hell off. Who gives this guy a job? That's your takeaway? That was his takeaway from the game. No discussion about what the game entailed, what Josh Allen did in that game. That was his takeaway. Josh Allen crapped down his leg. And if that's your takeaway from that, and this is a guy paid to sit behind a microphone and talk about sports, and that's something. Isn't that incredible? What happened to, I don't know. What happened to not being a human tweet? You know what I mean? That's like a human tweet. Just it's so stupid. Dominique, the two things he didn't do are the difference between him and Mahomes and Burrow, though. He missed the biggest moments of the game, even fumbled. See, this is fair. And we're going to talk about that later on in a minute here when we really get into the ins and outs of the game itself. This is fair. And it's certainly a contribution to the loss, which is why I just was saying it's not like he is completely dissolved of it's not like he's completely bulletproof to criticism. And there's certainly criticism to be dealt out to him last night. But I felt as though if the game was 100% progress bar meter, I thought Josh Allen hit about 94, 95% on that meter. If it was a video game and you had to get to 100, it feels like Josh Allen got to about 90-95% last night. But yep, you're right. The last drive is where that final 5-10% was left on the board for sure. And it is really it's truly the difference. I also just think that it's tough to pinpoint that. And what I was talking about throughout the night here, as far as the blame on Allen, it's tough to pinpoint that as the sole reason for the loss when everybody ignores all the other things that happened and also ignores the reason why Josh Allen got to that 90-95%. They just focus on the 5-10%. That's what's really bothering to me, and I hate that. Josh saying we would have been destroyed if Phil Rivers was our quarterback last night, but whatever, same result, I guess. Thanks for going to the game, Bob. That must have hurt. Oh, it did. No, it wouldn't have been the same result, I would say, if Philip Rivers was our quarterback. I don't think Philip Rivers is rushing for 72 yards and 2 touchdowns. I'm not comparing Josh Allen to Philip Rivers at all. They're two completely different types of quarterback. I mean, Philip Rivers is a big, massive pocket presence, just ripping it down the field type guy. I mean, I used to love watching Philip Rivers play. Josh Allen is not really like anybody else we've seen. It's not a fair comparison. I'm more so comparing it to the outcome of their teams. I mean, if you go and look at the comparison between the Chargers and the Bills currently when they were under Allen and when they were under Philip Rivers, they're very comparable. It's unfortunate. It's insanely unfortunate that that's the comparison because everybody remembers those Chargers as the biggest, do nothing with no one's done less with more in history, really. That's what it is. But I don't find those two to be comparable as far as quarterbacks are concerned. But when you're talking about the team in which those two quarterbacks were manning the ship and those comparisons, it's unfortunate, but it's true. That the comparisons are dead on right now. James, he's saying great therapy talk. Z-Bop, my Lake Erie Super Bowl hope is now over. Cheering for Lions now. Who you rooting for? Yep, I'm on it with you. Rooting for the Lions, no doubt. I'm sure that fairy tale will come to an end, though. The winner's coming out of the AFC, in my opinion. I'm rooting for the Lions and for that fan base, no doubt. Winner of this Super Bowl is the winner of the AFC Championship Sunday afternoon, in my opinion. I don't see Brock Purdy the way they should have lost to the Packers. So I don't trust it. I don't. We don't know the status of Debo either. It's a great football team. They certainly could win it, but I just think the AFC this year has got it. The winner of the AFC Championship on Sunday wins the Super Bowl, in my opinion. Either one of them. Metallica fan 88. JA17, the best Bills QB player of all time, no doubt. I mean, he's going to be on the short list. And he'll certainly have the stats. It's probably heading in that direction. But what's the legacy going to have attached to it? Honest to God, at this point, it's almost like you hope for it for his sake more than you hope it for your own. Zahn saying, Bills fans must be tired with the same playoff loss against the Chiefs Kingdom. Bills keep losing, but Bills played better all year. Yeah, I mean, that's the difference. The Chiefs are better when it counts. The Chiefs do the little things in the little moments that matter the most. The Bills do not. So to say, is it tiring? Yeah, it's exhausting. It's unbearably tiring. 3 of the last 4 years, this is what it is. It's unbelievable. I mean, I feel like that's been the general theme of this entire 3 hours on here tonight. It's indescribable how insane it is. And it's just a massive credit to the Chiefs. It's historic shit. Unprecedented. I mean, I have all the respect in the world. I hate it. But man, do I have all the respect in the world for it. It's something else. It's just something else. All right, that's all the super chats. So finally, after going on 2 hours, 45 minutes, by the way, we can get into the intricacies of this game. I can't believe that. Man, shout out for all the super chats, because I remember saying, let's get into the super chats first, and all this time went by. So let's talk about the game blow for blow here. Where am I here? Okay. Before we do that, hit the like and subscribe if you could. We'll have a ton of stuff going on throughout the offseason, so you're going to want to hit subscribe so we can talk about how we get over the hump. How do the Bills get over the hump? How do the Bills take that next leap? How do the Bills get to the promised land? Of course, we're going to have to talk about it all offseason. So hit subscribe. And BetUS, of course. Smoke break, powered by BetUS. Link in the description below. 125% sign up bonus. Click on it. Make sure to take advantage of it and get in on the action for the championship weekend. And of course, the Super Bowl, as well as all the other markets available, props, parlays, teasers, you name it. It's on there. And of course, that awesome Super Bowl giveaway they're doing with the tickets. You can get in on that as well and enter through all the information I gave to you earlier. To scroll back not all that long ago, check that out and make sure to enter to win those tickets and take advantage of this 125% sign up bonus in the link in the description below via BetUS. All right, so let's talk about a few themes of this game yesterday, okay? So the theme of this game, there was a lot of them. Right? The theme was first road game for the Bills, or for Patrick Mahomes, versus Josh Allen finally getting to play Patrick Mahomes in his home building, right? That was one of the themes going into it. One of the themes going into it was you got two defenses that are more than likely going to set the tone for this game compared to what would be the obvious answer when you're looking at these two quarterbacks. And that's the tone being set by this high-flying, up and down the field type offense. At least that's how I saw it. I thought the theme of the game was going to be low scoring and a defensive struggle type game. It was a little bit. It also wasn't. It was kind of a mix. Some of the game, it felt like it was. Other portions, it certainly did not. Overall, though, it felt like going into this game, the Bills were going to want to control the clock, keep the ball away from Mahomes, and try to get their defense off the field as much as possible because of how banged up they were. And that's why I felt like it was going to be lower scoring, because it didn't feel like there was going to be a ton of emphasis on trying to go up and down the field as quickly as possible. It felt like the benefit for these Bills would be to play the game that they've been playing pretty much the last couple of months here, and that's ground and pound. Move the ball down the field incrementally, and really dominate time of possession, score points that way, and get out of there with a win. Let's talk about the game plan itself offensively. That exactly what I just said was the game plan. The game plan for this game was exactly that. The game plan was to run the football, because the Kansas City Chiefs came into this game, I think, ranked 28th in the league in yards per carry defensively. So their weakest element of their defense was stopping the run. The Bills also knew how banged up their defense was, and it would certainly be beneficial to them to not have that defense out against Patrick Mahomes for more than it needed to be, right? And it also felt like these games that the Bills play against this team always come down to the final couple of snaps, and it would be beneficial to the Bills to really control the way the game was played from the onset, so that they had the ability to limit the amount of opportunities Mahomes was going to get, whether early or late in the game. It really just felt like the emphasis was to kill the clock, hold on to the ball, and run away with this game and hide. And early on, it felt like they were going to be able to do that. The way that the offense was working for the Bills, as well as the way it wasn't working maybe for the Chiefs, getting down the field, not being able to capitalize with touchdowns, whereas the Buffalo Bills were able to get off to two incredible early drives that resulted in one touchdown, one field goal. But early, it felt like with the 2 field goals that the Bills held the Chiefs to, that it was going to be a formula that was going to work during the evening until, of course, it didn't. The game plan is getting ripped to shreds today. I've noticed everyone's hating on the game plan, and they're saying that you got Josh Allen, you should be slinging it down the field. You got this quarterback who's got an unreal arm. He's unreal throwing the football. We all know all that, right? I don't understand why the game plan's getting attacked today. And I think if the Bills win this game, you don't hear a word about the game plan not being a solid one. I loved the game plan. In fact, I thought the game plan was as good of a game plan as you could have had for this type of game, the way that it was set up, where you know your defense is incredibly banged up and could really benefit from not being on the field. And you know that Mahomes is susceptible to dominating this game if he has ample opportunities to go and do so. The Bills had also been running the ball exceptionally well and knew the Chiefs' biggest liability defensively was stopping the run. It felt like a game plan that made a ton of sense. And it was also a game plan that really was executed very well up until the end. And that's why everybody today, I think, is hating on it. Because they diverted away from, they reverted back to a different type of Bills offense at the end. They diverged from what they were doing during the game and did something what felt like completely different at the end. That's what I hated about it. That's what I understand hating about it. Hating the game plan in itself, though, I don't know. I really, really liked it. And let's talk about why. Okay? Blind game test, right? Blind, what do you think happened type test, like I like to do on here, based on the numbers, okay? If I told you, and this is say I come up to you Saturday night, and I'm a wizard. I'm a wizard. That just summoned out of your light bulb or some shit, and you're sitting there, and I say, I'm gonna tell you the fate of the Bills game tomorrow, but not tell you the score. And you're like, oh my God, okay, tell me. And I say to you that Josh Allen has 3 total touchdowns. Josh Allen rushes for 72 yards. The Buffalo Bills do not turn the football over. In fact, the Buffalo Bills win the turnover battle. Josh Allen doesn't get sacked once. The Buffalo Bills outgain the Kansas City Chiefs. The Buffalo Bills run nearly 80 plays to Kansas City's 47. And perhaps the craziest thing of all, the Buffalo Bills have 37 minutes of possession to KC's 23. How do you feel about the Bills' chances in that game? Me personally, where's the dotted line? Where's the pen? Where do I sign? I'm signing up for all that because to me, all of those things would be keys to victory, in my opinion. If I know Josh Allen's getting 3 touchdowns on the day, he doesn't turn the ball over. They were undefeated this season when they didn't turn the ball over. I'm getting nearly 15 minutes more time of possession, double the amount of plays, more yards. I'd think we were in pretty good shape. I don't know how you couldn't. But once again, the numbers do not reflect the outcome of the game. Sometimes they do, Sometimes they don't. They say numbers don't lie. Well, sometimes numbers lie. Because if you were to look at those numbers, you'd probably think that the Bills got out of there with a win. But you have to add context to those numbers. And within that context come the Kansas City Chiefs, who dominated in the limited opportunities that they were given. So it would seem as though if I have 15 minutes more time of possession, double the plays, right, I controlled the game. The difference was, even though the Chiefs had significantly less plays and significantly less time with the ball, they did significantly more with less. The Buffalo Bills, in nearly 80 plays, had 0 plays go for 20-plus yards. With nearly half the amount of plays for the Kansas City Chiefs, they had 8. So once again, you'll look at the recap of the game, the box score, where it just seems like the team stats all but point to a Bills win. And when you add context, you understand why it didn't. Because even though the Bills had 78 plays to KC's 47, and even though they had nearly 15 minutes more in time of possession, the limited time of possession is all KC needed. It's all they needed. And even though the Bills had more, it took them significantly longer to do more with it. Now, I liked the way that they approached it, but the reality really is, if you're going to play the game that way, you have to capitalize. Even 1 or 2 drives where you don't, you're screwed. And that's pretty much what happened. When you are running 8-9 minutes off the clock every drive and you don't come up with points, it's a total waste. Total waste. Even a field goal ends up being a total waste. And it just felt like 1 or 2 punts in that game, you're screwed. And that's really wound up being the difference. We look at what the Chiefs had offensively here. 22 minutes, 47 plays. And let's just put into context what they did with that time, what they did with those plays. Okay. Like I said, 8 plays of 20-plus yards in those 47 plays. The passing game looks pretty pedestrian for Mahomes, right? Given his standards. 17 to 23, 215 yards, 2 touchdowns. You go deeper, Mahomes was averaging nearly 10 yards a throw. Nearly a first down a throw. MVS, milk carton all year long. Right? Heard a lot of bitching about him all year long being an issue for the Chiefs, costing them games. Only 2 catches, 62 yards, the catch of the game, maybe the catch of the playoffs. Oh, fuck. Kelsey, who's really had a tough time being himself, what we're used to from him. Best game he's had in probably 2 months. Really dominated the Bills when he was given a chance. 6 targets, 5 catches, 75 yards, 2 touchdowns. One of which was wide the hell open. Wide open. He was the X factor. He was the X factor that he hadn't been in a while for these Chiefs. Of course he was. Against the Bills. And then the guy that was missing the last time these Bills played the Chiefs, Isaiah Pacheco. Wasn't in for the Bills game the last time the Bills went up against him. And that looks like it might have been a big difference, because he comes out here rattling off 97 yards on only 15 carries, 6.5 yards a clip for Isaiah Pacheco. Chiefs' offensive line wasn't the greatest throughout the year. The tackles are certainly having their struggles, and it felt like that was going to be an advantage for the Bills' defensive line, which was the strong suit of this defense going into this game being as banged up as they were. They didn't get any pressure on Mahomes at all game long. He had as much time as he wanted in the back there to throw the football. They also ran the ball at will. They had no pressure in the pass game or in the run game to dictate anything the Chiefs offense was doing. They could do whatever they wanted all game long. And even though the box score is light, it does add up when you look at the amount of time that they had and what they did with the time that they did have. It's pretty crazy. They pretty much scored every single opportunity they were given. They only punted one time. And they as well never turned the ball over until late in the game, which it didn't really end up mattering because the Bills went 3 and out right after the fumble was overturned. So when you run the game plan the Bills did, which I understood and I liked, you're anticipating the Chiefs offense not being as dominant as they were in a 22-minute time span. You're anticipating that you get at least two stops defensively, maybe 3. They punted the ball one time, and it wasn't until the fourth quarter. So the offense could hold on to the ball as long as they wanted. The reality is that it doesn't matter how long you hold on to the ball because the Chiefs still have to get it at some point, and every time they got it, they scored instantly. The best example is right out of the half. The Bills go into half up 17-13, and if the defense was going to make any difference at all in this football game and set the tone for the second half, it was going to be that drive. And instead, it wound up being the exact opposite. That was the drive that set the tone for the Chiefs in their offense in the second half. They went right down the field. They scored within about 3 minutes. And that, of course, was the drive that featured the MVS catch down the right sideline. That was the play of the game offensively for the Chiefs. And it really was in that moment where you felt like the Bills were going to be in trouble. Even though they really dictated the first half, kind of felt like they were kind of controlling things a bit more than the Chiefs were. You knew as soon as that second half kicked off and that offense went down and did what they did on that drive as quickly and easily as they did, they were going to be in some trouble. And that really wound up being the case. I thought what the Chiefs offense did yesterday was incredibly impressive. Because they really hadn't shown the ability to do it like that in a while here. You know? They really hadn't had they really hadn't showcased the ability to do that consistently in a game over the last couple of months. But hey, sure as shit, when it mattered the most, the lights were the brightest, and of course against the Bills, they did it. They found a way. And you got to give them credit, man. You got to give them credit. Defense banged up, sure. Injured, sure. Yep. But they made it look easy. I mean, they made it look real easy up and down the field. I was pretty taken back by their ability to do it. Like I said earlier in the show, I just thought that there was a switch that they did not have the ability to flip because they hadn't flipped it all year, but they made us all look dumb, didn't they? And they're good at doing that. You know, I don't know why. Every time you doubt them, it doesn't matter. It's amazing. You still doubt them. I still doubt them. Everybody still doubts them. And why? They prove you wrong every time. The offense, I thought, did enough to win this game. And it really came down to the defense's inability to get a stop at all throughout the duration of the football game up until late. But at that point, then, of course, the offense sputters out, right? That's when the offense couldn't do anything. And they have to punt the ball a few times. And they all of a sudden can't run the ball. And they all of a sudden can't get a first down. The game plan to me felt like it was one that made sense and could have gotten them a win. And it to me, that's exactly what it was. It did make sense. It did work to me. And I think it could have gotten them a win. Everybody today saying, oh, well, why didn't they let Josh Allen throw it down the field more? I mean, his average completion was 4.8 yards. And, they really weren't trying much down the field. Nothing was open. They didn't have anything open, it seemed. And when they did, it was dropped. You had two unreal dime bombs from Allen dropped by Diggs and dropped by Sherfield. Wasn't like they didn't try. I liked the underneath thing. They were moving the sticks that way. It wasn't like it wasn't working. I mean, they had 182 yards on the ground. They ran it 39 times. They threw it 39 times. It was dead even, down the middle, balanced. It's what this team has been. I love it. I love the balance. And it was working. Everybody wants to act today like it wasn't working because it didn't work on the final drive. Yes, that cost them. But doing what they did in this game, they still scored more in this game against that Chiefs defense than they did in the last game. And they only scored 20 in the last game, and that was enough to win. And they could have scored more in this one. Just, we all know how the end went. Despite taking the underneath all game long, despite running the ball all game long, they still moved the ball and still scored more points than they did in a winning effort against the same Chiefs team a month and a half ago. And everybody wants to see Allen slinging it all over the field and stuff. Well, that's not what this team was towards the end of the year. And maybe that's what they need to get back to. And maybe that's what's going to be the difference at some point if they can get back to that in a way that makes sense, in a way that works. But the way that this team was winning towards the end was doing what they were doing yesterday. So to all of a sudden hate it because it didn't work in the final drive, I have a tough time with. But here's what I really had a tough time with when it came to that final drive. They weren't doing what got them there in the first place. At the very end, I should say. They were doing it in the beginning of the drive. Throughout the game, they were throwing dink and dunks pretty much all night. Screen routes, getting the running backs involved, curl patterns, really just working it down the field. And then, of course, a whole lot of James Cook running it, Josh Allen running it, Ty Johnson getting involved. I thought he had a real effective game for the Bills on only 7 carries. It was just a whole lot of incrementally moving the ball, right? And then capping it off with points. Now, at the end of the game, they were struggling to move the football because the Chiefs had did a good job of moving up the defense and taking away the Bills' ability to run it. But it didn't end up costing them. Crazy enough, the Bills somehow at the end of this game had the ability to have the ball in their hands with a chance to either tie or win it. Somehow. Think about how improbable that was. The Bills go for that god-awful fake punt, horrendous decision. That was the worst coaching decision of the entire night. And it somehow doesn't burn them. Mecole Hardman somehow isn't down, fumbles that ball out of the back of the end zone. It's one of the more obscure rules in the sport. And that's a touchback, and it's Bills' ball. And it didn't look, and I didn't have the benefit of the TV angle because I was at the game, but on the Jumbotron, it did not look conclusive enough based on what I've known from this, the way the officiating works in the review process. It didn't seem like there was enough conclusive evidence. Therefore, they would have went with the call on the field, and they overturned it. Everyone in that stadium was stunned. So you don't get screwed on the fake punt. That somehow did not cost you. That was a guaranteed touchdown for the Chiefs there. If that doesn't happen, that would have put the Chiefs up 10. That would have been the ball game. It would have been game over right there, lights out, it's over. But all game long, my dad and I just kept saying, this Bills D is getting shredded. They don't have anything that's going to be able to stop them. The only thing you can hope for is a turnover. They need a turnover. They need a break. They need a break. And they got it in the most improbable way. In the most improbable way you could have imagined, on the 1 yard line, a fumble out of the back of the end zone where Hardman's knee was 1 millimeters, centimeters of a millimeter, the smallest fraction you could possibly imagine from being down. That was the break, an improbable break. They got it. And they immediately went 3 and out. So then again, you're thinking it's over right there. It's over. You can't do anything there. You can't take advantage of that. Then there's just no way. You don't got it tonight. And then Sam Martin lines up to punt, and it's a shank. Shank. Right? Terrible. And somehow, some way, as this game's about to come to a close towards the end, the Bills finally force their first punt of the night. The Chiefs are right around midfield, could certainly have gotten over the midfield line into scoring territory and really put this game away. The Bills defense stepped up in a huge moment, something they could not do all night long. They finally got a stop, finally hit Mahomes, finally forced a punt. Here's your chance. By the grace of God, with the Chiefs getting incredible starting field position and with the Chiefs being on the goal line, you still are only down 3, have the ball in your hands, and can go and take the lead or tie this game. Bills get the ball with over 8 minutes left. And they would do what they've done all game long, and that's incrementally move the ball down the field, destroy the clock, and move the sticks. They had that ball with over 8 minutes left in the game, and they would bring it all the way down to the 2-minute warning inside of opponent territory. And this, to me, is where they went away from what their identity was all night long, and I think it really wound up costing them the football game. I think this next sequence here, out of everything, was the biggest reason the Bills lost this football game. So, moving the ball, they had that awesome 4th and 3 conversion from Khalil Shakir coming out of the backfield, which was amazing in its own right based on the fact that I thought his night was done, and he came back out of the locker room and made that play. Great play design, schemed him up wide open. They're moving the ball exactly like they were moving it earlier in the game. They get it down to around the 30-yard line or so, right? And here you go. This is where it's going to be either won or lost. And you know a few things are at hand here. You know Tyler Bass hasn't been kicking it all that great. You know the weather could potentially play a factor in the kick the farther out you're at. You know that even if you do end up kicking it here, the more time you leave, the more it's not even going to matter whether you make it or not, because you know for a fact Mahomes, with 2 timeouts left and about 2 minutes to play, is going to go down and get them in field goal range, and Harrison Butker is going to make it. He is the better field goal kicker by a mile. So you got to play this just right, and you know what happens when you don't. You'll lose. You've been on the losing end of it in the worst way possible before. So you're doing a great job of killing that clock, and you bring it down to the 2-minute warning. You run James Cook into a wall, and it's 2nd and 9. Okay, now here's where you got to get creative. They went away from what they were doing all game, and that was moving the ball in front of the sticks to get beyond the sticks. Short passes, passes to the running back, Josh Allen running the ball, designing runs for him both inside and outside. What do? They take a shot at the end zone, and on 3rd down, Josh Allen rolls to his right and throws it 100 yards out of bounds. Everyone today is saying the throw to Shakir was the right read, and that it very well might have been. In my opinion, I did not like the decision at all. The decision to go to Diggs on that play, to me, is the best decision available 10 out of 10 times. Why? Because even if Shakir scores a touchdown there, you still are giving Mahomes and the Chiefs around 2 minutes to go down and score a touchdown with 2 timeouts. Now, it's a lot tougher to do than going and just getting a field goal. But the way the Chiefs were moving the ball on the Bills defense all day, do you really feel like that was a crazy possibility? No. But you're thinking you're still feeling good about it. That I get. Fine. But the Bills that wasn't their game plan all game long, taking shots like that. It had not been working. Down the field had not been working. They had not had a single play over 20 yards. It just was not working. They went away from what was working. In that moment, not only do you stop the clock, you don't gain any yards at all, so you don't add any benefit to the kicker in that situation at all, knowing that every yard's going to count in that situation for Tyler Bass. You don't keep the clock moving. You don't get any closer to the sticks to try to bring that clock all the way down. You have 2 goals on this drive. Obviously, to score, that's priority. But you also wanted to bring that clock down as much as it possibly could. And you know that that's what they were trying to do, because that's exactly what they were doing until they weren't. And when you look at Stephon Diggs on that play, he is not only wide open and is guaranteed to get the first down, but if he does catch the ball and Allen goes to him, you get the first down, and that either exhausts another timeout from the Chiefs or that burns the clock down to about 1:15. And not only that, say things hit the skids and the Bills don't end up finding a way into the end zone from there, that turns that 42-ish yard field goal into about what? A 30-yard field goal. And I think Bass makes the 30-yard field goal. Or at least he has a much better chance to do so. They went away from what their identity was in that game. Their identity was not taking shots at the end zone. It just felt like anytime they took a shot in that game, it didn't work, whether it was, doesn't matter whose fault it was. It was somebody's fault at any given time. It did not seem very self-aware of the situation. It's a very high-risk, high-reward play. The Bills were playing low-risk, low-reward play, stacking their winnings and cashing them in for bigger winnings at the end of these drives. That felt like it was putting all your chips in the center of the table type play. It's not how the Bills were playing their hand all night long. And to go that different in that moment, I hated it. It felt like going for the first down made way, way, way more sense in that moment than going for the touchdown there. I understand why he did it. I understand the read was open. I understand if he wasn't thrown off by Chris Jones or whatever the hell happened there as to why he didn't get it to where it needed to go. I understand it could have been the play of the game. I do. But the reason I'm saying right, and the reason I'm saying what could have been, it's because it goes back to what I just said. High risk, high reward. We're talking about what the reward of that could have been, but it was a real risky throw. In that moment, I'm not necessarily saying the throw itself was risky because Shakir was wide open, but the moment itself, that play is risky. Taking no time off the clock, you're not moving the ball forward at all to help your kicker out. And now you're putting yourself back into third down position, 3rd and long. It just wasn't what they were doing all night long. And then 3rd down, I don't even know what that was. It was a blown play. Just a blown play, nothing open. Allen had nothing, tried to make something. There was nothing to be made. Chucked it out of bounds. And then that brings you to 4th down. You don't gain another yard. You don't gain another yard. You don't take another second off the clock. You couldn't have ended that drive worse. So, yes, that's where I believe Allen is to be blamed in this game. That portion of it, certainly. So when we get into, fair share of blame here, fair share of blame there, this drive, in my opinion, falls on the shoulders of Allen at the end. I 100% think that. Now it will be blown up to the nth degree because it was the final drive, and I understand it. But to put all the blame on Allen in this game is insane to me. I don't know how you could possibly have that mindset, nor do I think that it's even a fair argument. I mean, we've been over this all night long. But to shield him from any blame in this game would not be fair. Like I said, the status bar meter filled to about 90-95%, and usually that's about as good as you can get, and usually that is about all you need to win. But here's the deal. And it's the reason why it makes it even tougher to put blame on Allen at all, right? Is that he has to hit that 100. He has to hit that 100 meter on the status bar for them to win. Most teams, it feels like, can get away with a couple of errors with their quarterback and still get out of there alive. I mean, like yesterday, it wasn't Mahomes, but they still got away with an error and got out of there alive, right? The Chiefs fumble a ball on the goal line in the fourth quarter and turn the ball over and still get out of there alive. It feels like these teams can afford these errors, whereas the Bills can't, in these big moments. So the shitty thing is Josh Allen, up until that point, did everything he could have possibly done. And you want to know what the other thing is, too? Is that he's getting the blame in this situation for this drive, and deservingly so. To me, that was the wrong read. It was not what I would have done, nor was it what I think should have been done or what I think was the best decision in that moment. But at the end of the day, the truth of the matter is he did get them down in field goal range for a chance to tie that game and extend the game. He did. So even though we're blaming him on this drive for the outcome being what it was, the result still ended up being an opportunity for these Bills to tie the ball game. So it's tough. Let's talk about Tyler Bass. Feel bad for the kid. Feel bad for the kid. It just felt like before it even got kicked, it just felt like he was going to miss it. I don't know what it was going into this week. We all had a weird feeling, didn't we? We all had a weird feeling that it was going to come down to Tyler Bass. We even talked about it last week. You're like, would you feel confident? And I said I would feel confident, but not nearly as confident as I would feel if I had a kicker like Harrison Butker. And I think that showed yesterday. When Butker kicked it, he kicked it with vengeance, and that baby was down the stripes. That kick wasn't close. I was sitting right behind the goalpost, and it wasn't even close. And of course, it's wide right. Now, that means nothing to me. I think it's so stupid. People make that into a thing out of this game because the wide right for the Giants, it's the final play of the game, understandably, right? But in this one, it's like that wasn't the. To me, this game's not on Tyler Bass. It's not on Bass. Not on Bass. Like, you can call this game the wide right game, but here's the reality, folks. Even if Tyler Bass splits that field goal right down the wickets, they're losing that game. They're losing that game. There's a $1:45 on the clock, and Mahomes has got 2 timeouts. Ball game. A field goal there was it's funny. I even said this to my dad before he made it. I said, even if he makes this, it feels as good as a miss or a make here feels as the same as a miss. It just felt like it was either touchdown there or they're going to lose the game. That's just what it felt like. So will we know? Will we ever know what would have happened if Bass made it? No. But what I think happens and what's making me feel a lot better about him missing that is that they're losing anyways. I don't see how, with the way the Chiefs offense was carving up the Bills D and the way that we've seen the Mahomes experience execute in the final minutes of the game, that I don't see how the Chiefs don't win that game. You're giving them about 2 minutes and 2 timeouts. I've seen them do it with 13 seconds. So, and Bucker's making the kick. No question. So I think even if Bass makes it, they lose that game. So that's why I don't put the blame on Tyler Bass for the loss. Because I just think they lose anyways. It would have been something else, however, if that game ended up going to overtime. Because it would have been the first overtime game in the playoffs since the Bills and the Chiefs last faced off, meaning it would have been the first playoff game with the new playoff rules. And wouldn't it have been ironic if it was the first game with the new rules featuring the two teams that wound up getting the rules changed in the first place? But it wasn't meant to be. In my opinion, the game was lost on that 2nd and 3rd down and 9, not the Tyler Bass missed kick. But you know what? At the end of the day as well, it's a lot of coulda, shoulda, wouldas. Really, though, the Chiefs were an eyelash away on both the ball and the knee from going up by 10 and really winning that game earlier on. The Bills got blessed. It's funny, though. It felt like it was one of those moments where when they did get that fumble out of the goal line, didn't you feel like, man, it really is their year? Man, like they really do have some fate on their side this year that we never get. Like, when would that ever happen to the Chiefs? Fumbling the ball in that situation out of the back of the out of the back of the end zone. Like, when did the Chiefs do that in that moment? They don't. So it made you feel like, man, you know, you really got something different here. And nope. Still ends the way it always does, in heartbreaking fashion. In sickening fashion. BH Nate is saying, you guys are fools. It wasn't a home run ball from Allen. It was wide open to Shakir. Oh, I agree with you. I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm not saying it wasn't at all. It was a proper read. What I'm just saying is I in that moment, based on what the game was, based on the situation, I 100% prefer the throw to Diggs, is all. It's not that it was the wrong throw at all. It's not that it wasn't the right read. And it's not that the Chiefs D didn't do a hell of a job defending it. I agree with all of that. Based on the moment and the way the game was being played and what you knew you were going to have to do to not only score, but also keep the Chiefs off the field from being able to score themselves, it felt like the Diggs throw was 100% the right one based on their game plan. But if Shakir catches that, am I saying that? Probably not. You know? Well, of course not, actually. But it just felt like it wasn't characteristic based on their game plan of that night for that night, you know? So 3.5 in. I want to say before we wrap up tonight, we'll do something else later on in this week. I don't know what, but we'll do something. Maybe we'll talk about the games that's coming up weekend, and I don't know. Find a way to move on. But I want to say, it does feel like a lot of doom and gloom, right? It is another year gone by the wayside. It does feel like another wasted season. And like Alan said, in other words, it's the nature of this business. There's only one team that goes home happy, and it's basically a failure if you don't win the whole thing, right? I just want to say that there is a part of me, and I don't usually like to find silver linings in these type of seasons, because this was a failure of a season. It absolutely was. A disappointing end of the season, no question. But I have to give credit where credit's due. I thought that this team was dead in the water, not a chance in hell of any playoff berth, much less taking the Chiefs down to the wire in the divisional way back in about week 13. I got to give these guys all the credit in the world for finding a way. I didn't think that they had it in them this year. I just did not think they had what it took to overcome what they ended up overcoming. I know it doesn't mean a lot what they did, because it didn't result in what everybody, including myself, is after and want and really need in order to validate this team and Josh Allen's tenure here in Buffalo so far. But that truly was something. Their ability to go from 6-6 to the 2 seed and winning the division and stealing it from Miami 3 games back. That was pretty special. That was pretty special. I know every year we say we don't, like, none of it matters and we won't remember any of it. That's typically true. I can't lie. I'm not going to forget anytime soon the Bills robbing the AFC East title from the Dolphins, who had a 3-game lead with 5 games left. That was one of the cooler things of the last couple of years to me. Not just so much because the Bills did it. It was because that they took it from the Dolphins. I just thought that was beyond poetic and just insanely hilarious, because it really felt like they had no ability to do it, and they somehow did it. So I have to give them a ton of credit for that. It was really impressive, and it gave us all the opportunity to even see what we saw last night. At the end of the day, it really does. All that doesn't matter. They still got there, and they still with being there. You're in the same situation last night as you were back in your 13-3 season, and you don't do it. You don't overcome it, and that's really all that matters. And that's all that's going to be remembered. It sucks, but I would have been remiss to not have said that there was that portion of the season this year was a lot of fun to be a part of. It was a lot of fun to watch, and it was impressive, and it was something. And it said a lot about this team, and I think it said a lot about McDermott, and it said a lot about this franchise's ability to overcome, certainly. But it's amazing. No matter how good, how bad, overcome, domination, whatever, all the same end result. And I don't know where we go from here. We'll have a whole off season to dive into that, and we'll have a whole off season to try and figure out what's next. But I don't know what's next. The easy answer would be that what's next is the same thing, because this is what it's been. That's the easy answer. What's going to happen in order for things to change? I don't know. I don't think it's fire Sean McDermott and it's going to change. I don't think that's just, I don't know if that's the end all be all answer, nor is it going to happen. So it's not even relevant. It just feels like it's going to be the same. The Bills are going to bow out and the Chiefs are going to be right there again. But that's the beauty of the offseason, given this time to put in the back. Moving on to the forward. And inevitably seeing if it ends up being different. Because I guess it won't be different until it is different, right? And maybe one of these times it just is different. But chalk this year up to one of those on the long list of seasons that weren't. A total bummer. You know, it's just really hit me right now that it's over. The season's over. That's always the biggest bummer. It's obviously the gut wrenching that they don't go and and do what they're capable of and eventually get one. That's killing. But it always, to me, every year, the biggest bummer is just the realization that you can't watch them anymore. It's over. Doing this every week, right, and watching the Bills every week, it's the best. The best. Now that's done. It sucks. That's always the biggest bummer. Tyler coming in. Only way is claim 1 seed and hope. See, that's a good point. There's things the Bills haven't done that there's a potential to do that could make things better, right? Like that. I was thinking about that last night. How big does that 1 seed look right now from the Bills' perspective? Okay, you can't beat the Chiefs. So put yourself in a position where you don't even have to play them until you get to the AFC Championship, right? And the Lions beat the living hell out, or the Ravens beat the living hell out of the Texans. So maybe that's the answer. I don't know. But what I do know is I really appreciate the living hell out of all you guys who tune into the smoke break each and every week this week. It was a fun year. A lot of ups and a lot of downs, and we shared them all together. And it was a lot of fun riding the up of the roller coaster into the playoffs the last month and a half together. It was a blast. We really were able to have some fun here towards the end. It didn't end the way we wanted it, but it never does. But the one thing that's great is that we all get to share it together, win, lose, or draw. Especially in the losing moments, we get to share those together, and these are always the best. I feel better now than I felt 3.5 hours ago. I hope you did too. And I really, really do appreciate everybody tuning in every week. It's the best having you guys, and I really enjoy doing this for you. And for me, really, I mean, I just enjoy it. I love it. I love it, and I love you guys, man. It's a cool thing we got going here, and it was a great year to be a part of it. It's a great year to be a part of another growth-filled and fun year with my fellas, Rico, Pierre, Rev. We really all appreciate you here at the BF making it what it is, and we really don't take for granted having you guys come and hang out with us every week. It means the world, and it's not coming to an end, of course. We got it going on all off season, but with the season coming to a close, I'd be crazy not to take at least a minute here and thank all you guys from the bottom of my heart for another incredible year spent together. Truly, it means a whole hell of a lot to me. It really does. It's the best. You guys are awesome. I have a ton of fun every week here, and I don't know, Bills football wouldn't be the same without it. So, hell of a lot of love to all you guys as always, but no more so than right now. Reflecting on this past year. Thanks again for sticking around every week, stopping by, celebrating, and crying. And something in the middle. It was a wild year. We turn the page to 2024, start looking at the offseason, what has to be done. We'll start looking at the draft, and we'll look forward at the championship and Super Bowl games as well, because somebody's got to win it. Even if it's not the Bills, somebody's got to win it. So I venture to believe later on in the week, we'll take a look at the championship games and talk about what we can expect from those. And then it's Super Bowl time, and then it's off season again. Season went by quick, man. It always does. I'm going to miss it. All right, well, until something else this coming week, keep it locked on my Twitter at @ZBotTweets. Keep it locked on the YouTube channel, and subscribe and get the notifications so you see when we go live again. But we'll do something later this week in regard to the championship weekend, so keep an eye out for that. On your way out, hit the like button, subscribe button if you could, and take advantage of that 125% sign-up bonus via BetUS in the link in the description below. Also, make sure to hop into that giveaway for the Super Bowl tickets. $25 wager, screenshot it, tweet it, follow all the directions in the graphic displayed earlier on in the show, and you will be entered to win. All right, folks. See you later on in the week. But until then, enjoy the rest of your week. Try your best to move on as much as you can. And as always, folks, go Bills.
good for you.